you don't exist. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowed like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look at better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheap again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the fourth part of What If Deku Enters Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Special note, this fanfic is written in a masterpiece of Raven 716 on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. Right now, after the buzzard rang ending the second event, two things mattered. Finding April and Izuku, the guys too, and figuring out where Jun went off to. Okay, guess more than two things then, but seriously you weren't sure where Jun went. After he let you down from his shoulders, congratulated the two of you in a way that seemed weird for making it. Disappeared for the second you turned your attention from him. He was gone. There was no sign of him being there, but his name was on the display board. Maybe he just got shy or was tired. After all, thinking about it for a moment logically, he did do most of the legwork. No pun intended, so maybe he just needed to rest his legs. Yeah, that seemed right. Still, you wished he'd stay or something. Guess he just didn't. So pushing that to the other side of your mind, search for any sign of Izuku or April, the guys too. Your eyes scanning each and every face in the sea of students. Some wore long faces, the ones who didn't make it, while others had uplifting faces. There was no visual, or in your case optical visual, of either Izuku or April, pretty much anyone in that case. Not even the guys, which was odd. So, you opted into finding them another. Stopping for a moment, take a soft breath, close your eyes, and hum quietly inside. Nothing but darkness you saw. A small shiver ran your spine for a moment. That was okay. It happened that way. Focusing your thoughts, wait to see them, wait to feel them. Feel each unique warmth of light that shined, some glowed, others illuminated. Whichever the case, it was there, and once you managed to see them, then knew they were close, you just had to guide yourself to them. The only problem, you didn't sense anything, nothing. It was cold, dark, silent, not a single flicker of light to be seen in the dark. So, you tried harder, still nothing. You go for it again and still nothing. It was opening your eyes, strange. You should have been able to sense someone or something by now, but no presence came. Nothing. It felt blank, like someone covered you with a heavy blanket of shade so thick it stripped your breath. A touch that was both cold and oddly familiar. You weren't sure why, but this feeling caused a painful tightness in your throat that burned just a little. That wasn't the only thing burning. Among the students, a pair of cheeks inflamed with red when their black eyes noticed the pink-haired American girl standing there alone again. Their heart thumped rapidly against their chest. They were sure it was heard. Hopefully not, though. That wouldn't be good. Even so, she was standing there, alone, no one around her. This was their chance to go over to her. Yeah, that's all they had to do, was just go over, reach out a hand to her shoulder and give it a light tap. Just a simple light tap. Nothing too heavy, they didn't want to damage her shoulders with their strength. Considering her petite size, which is cute if not adorable. So kawaii, they couldn't stop themselves from screaming inside. Felt it about to explode outward. Swallowed it. Last thing they needed was for her to hear it though. They gave it a thought. If she did, she might turn around to them, their eyes would meet like it did back in the halls of UA for a brief moment before their moment was interrupted by the lunch bell, and she was swept away by the students before a single word could come from their lips to her. She was gone. Now they had a chance. This time though they'd better not freeze like they did before the second event. They couldn't freeze. They wouldn't freeze. Inhaling deep, turned fully in her direction despite her back being to them, walked boldly over. It was simple, so simple in what they had to do. Playing the motion over and over again in their mind. Yeah, it was going to work, they knew it. Okay, they breathed. Just a few more feet, closing in the target, get their hand ready to reach out despite its itchiness. Ignore it. Now just a few more steps, and they blink for a second. A mistake on their part. The moment their eyes open, find two things. One momentary moment of darkness that flashed and her gone. She was gone. No longer standing in the spot, she was just a second again, she was gone. Again. Damn it, they roared with a clenched fist to the sky. Scream. Damn it. A few students overhearing them turned to see him in such an uproar. Unsure why leave him be. Defeated, once again for the third or maybe this was the fourth time, count their loss and follow the other students out of the arena. Standing outside the arena by one of the entrance exits, looking among the faces of the other students as they walk for two familiar ones. Kirby. He hadn't spotted any sign of his daughters, they hadn't emerged just yet. So far, quickly glancing at his watch, 5 minutes have passed for the lunch break, and he wanted to spend the bit of time they had with them. Explore the many vendors that his youngest has pointed out when they arrived. Insisting on trying some, enjoying a festival was one thing she had on her list of things to do here in Japan. A list she introduced him to when he arrived actually now that he thought about it was more like a book that she lost. So what she showed him was just a rough draft of the many things she wanted to do. Eating at different vendors, why not? Chuckling to himself at the thought of it, she was so. A small warm smile slowly grew on his lip fondly. His youngest, she was the way she has turned out wasn't anything he expected to happen. But after everything, he was glad she finally was able to experience such simple bliss and the fact she smiled more than she did before. Yes, he thought back for a moment, he could still remember the day that she came into his family's life. Those at first dark, yet innocent eyes that firmly stared back into his blue ones, he understood why. He did. She had every right. The way those hands of hers, those small hands of her clenched into a fist charging up ready to attack, standing before them, refusing any passage, she had every right after all. It was so long ago, and now, Kirby came back to the present. Now here his youngest was, the stirring fear that swirled in his stomach about sending his daughters here eased. There wasn't any sort of evidence of their presence so far. Now, back to looking for his daughters, still no sign of them. Wait, he spotted April, raised a hand, called to her. April, April. Hearing his voice, April stopped for a second and turned his way. A smile rushed to her face. Dad, she exclaimed, making her way through others over to him. Dad, hugged him the minute they meet up. He hugged her back, tighter than her, held her close. I was worried I'd miss you, he chuckled softly. You hadn't come out yet. April chuckled a bit. Sorry, I was stayed back for a second to talk with Yurikara for a second, and May. The ones from my team. Yurikara wanted to see if I wanted to get lunch before the next event began. I had to tell her no, just for now. Didn't mean to keep you waiting. That's all right, he gave her a soft squeeze, loosened his hold on her, realized something and looked around. Hold on, where's May? April rose a brow, turned around back the way she came. I thought she'd be here by now. I didn't get a chance to meet up with her after the event. I thought she already left and came to meet you. She didn't? Kirby's heart stopped. His youngest wasn't here, she didn't even come out. He'd be able to spot her with those eyes and bright smile, but there was nothing. Noticing her father's pained gaze, April didn't need to use her quirk to know the thoughts of her father. We shouldn't be that far, April assured him. I can sense for her, okay? Kirby nodded. Her eyes covered in a glowing blue hue. April searched for her sister, seeking that familiar signature. Gasped. Nothing. She found nothing, except a small sharp pain that lashed back. It stung, disturbing her search. She wasn't sure what it was, except it left her mind for a second hazed and head buzzing. Doing her best not to show it, otherwise her father's worry would increase. So she did the only thing that could think of. Maybe she just got distracted. You know how she can be. That was true, Kirby had to agree. Still the swirling feeling in his stomach rose, prickled his skin. I'm going to go and look for her, he told April. Stay here. Hearing the firmness in his voice covering up his trembling words, April didn't argue and did as he said. Watched him hurry back to the entrance of the seats and disappear. Heaving and huffing, Kirby ran as well as a middle-aged man his age could. Each step he took increased the speed of his heart. The thumping of it faded. The only sound he heard, his hardened breathing that wheezed the longer he kept running. Feeling the burning in his legs, quickly tiring, wanting to stop. He wasn't built for this, still pushed forward. He wasn't going to stop. He had to find his youngest daughter. She was here, somewhere. He knew it, he felt it, even if didn't have a quirk. He knew she was here and... May, he called. May? Where are you? There was no response but his own echo. He still kept shouting out. May, May, May Aurora O'Neil. Still, nothing. Even with her whole name being shouted through the halls. The further he went, the distance the festival noise became, and the higher his worry increased. It shouldn't really, but it did. May, he continued calling out. The same results returned. Soon enough his legs caught up with him, and he had to stop running. Rest himself on the wall, taking a few breaths. Catching it the best he could, lungs flamed and expanding rapidly. Sweat dripping down, he reached into his coat and took out a handkerchief, patted his forehead and neck. Began fanning himself just a bit to cool off, yet it seemed to do little effect. For some reason the temperature increased where he was, which was odd considering these halls were air-conditioned. Still fanning himself and patting his forehead, didn't notice the large flamed hero approaching from behind, till Kirby felt it and saw the shadow cast over him. Turned around to the pro-hero, staring hard at the meek average man before him. A look that rose a sort of unsettlement in Kirby, at the same time rooted him where he stood. The hero remained before Kirby like a stone wall, arms crossed. Flames going, his turquoise behind the flamed mask hardened with each second that passed without words being exchanged. They pressured upon Kirby, who felt its weight, yet did his best to stand firm. Cleared his throat, broke the silence. "Why, yes, can I help you?" he simply asked. Watched a flamed hero's brows knot further together. Took a step towards Kirby, who took a step back. Mainly from the flames, noticing the small glimmer of fear that rose in his blue's eyes, the hero's nose wrinkled a bit. As if disgusted or something, grunted hard, Kirby flinched slightly, but still held his ground. Clearing his throat again, Kirby repeated the same question. "Can I help you?" This time, the flame hero did respond in a voice that reflected his powerful status with arrogance. His answer shook Kirby's heart with nearly every word, yet at the same time slightly just a bit confused him, but he didn't show it. Yet, the flame hero saw it. Repressed the grunt he wanted to give after the last word left his mouth, with nothing else to say. The flame hero walked around Kirby and left, leaving the man in a state of haze. For a few minutes forgot his search for his youngest. What that hero said reminded him for a moment what his wife explained to him. He didn't want to believe it, but giving it another thought that puzzled him, how in the world could that be? He wouldn't allow it, no, being the parental figure and all. There was no way but again what the hero said. The words he used churned Kirby's stomach. His stomach wasn't the only one that was acting funny. Your stomach hadn't stopped growling and grumbling. It was hungry. There was no doubt, holding it, you wanted to eat something. But, at the same time, despite all the delicious smells, you wanted to find someone. Anyone really. But, you hadn't found them. Still, that didn't stop you from searching, knowing eventually you'd stumble upon them. Leo and the others must have met up with Sensei, you mused to yourself. So it is logically they'd want to spend time with their father. Though, you stop for a moment, look around, unaware of eyes following you from the shadows. As for April and father, Izuku-chan too, your voice dropped. I cannot seem to find any of them. It's as if, your voice lowered more to a near whispers and whimper. Bit back your trembling lip. They have been obstructed from me. Where could they be? Lifting your head, glance around at the many faces all around, while your nose filled an abundance of savory aromas. That increased your hunger further, your stomach more pain. If you did not get some food in you soon, you might just if you didn't find someone soon. Anyone then you just unable to finish either thought with hunger taking its hold. Huff, hard. Didn't notice a figure approach until their well-manicured hand lightly tapped you on the shoulder, startling you. Your shoulders jumped a bit. "Oh, forgive me," a kind silvery voice dipped in honey spoke. It was beautiful, that was sure, a voice equally matching the owner. Who was just that. Turning around you find a woman. A beautiful older woman in her 40s or so, that took your breath away, her dark amberish golden eyes behind small glass that were sharp, yet kind, reminded you of summer's brightest rays, and seemed familiar. Short, asymmetrical cut, silver hair to her shoulders framing her heart-shaped face well. She was just breathtaking, all the way to her smooth cinnamon skin that was complemented well with her pure white sharp-skirted business suit. Blazer and all. Even down to her heels, that gave her at least 3 extra inches, added to her slim yet endowing mature figure. Your heart thumped against your chest, felt your cheeks burn just a bit. From the light smile she presented to you, it was cute. Even with the white lipstick on, it was still cute. Even the small laugh she gave. Your eyes dropped to the ground. My dear, please, she said kindly. Lift your head. Listening to her words, raise your head. Meet her eyes, they lock for a moment. Her smile grew and the heat on your cheeks too. I hope I didn't scare you too much, dear. You shake your head. And no, you finally find the words. I was just distracted. That's all. I apologize if I caused you to worry. My, she gushed a bit. What lovely manners you have. It's been quite some time since I've heard such manners. You weren't sure what it was, but there was a slight accent in her voice. That seemed familiar. She cleared her throat. I was hoping to find you. My name is Dr. Mary T. She introduced herself pleasantly. I was observing you in seats and I must say, she rested a hand on your shoulder. I was quite impressed. With a finger pushed her glasses up, reflected the off for a second. Her smile remained. Really? You asked with a shy smile. But happy nonetheless. She nodded. Yes, your skills and quirk are remarkable. Your smile beamed a bit further. I do hope I am not being too forward, but as I sat in the audience I captivated by you. Your progress is wonderful. You see, I specialize. Clearing her throat corrects her words. My organization specializes in biological fundamentals of quirks. It sounds rather silly, yes, I know, but we pride ourselves in our research. Finding ways to explore and further push the boundaries of quirks. I'm sure you've been told that during the festival others are scouting young heroes in Rising. And well, I know my organization isn't hero-based. We do come across quite heavy amount both hero and citizen alike to help them understand their quirk or push its potential if needed. And seeing you and potential of your quirk, I think you'd be wonderful to come for an internship. There is a hero I believe that is tied with us. He would enjoy your presence. Goes by the name Twy. You weren't sure what to say really. The festival wasn't over yet, and here this woman doctor was offering you an internship already. Just after seeing you, which honestly you felt you hadn't given much. Yet she was extended this offer. Eager and hoping you'd accept. The way her smile pushed more on her lips. Fumbling with your fingers, give it a thought. It was very generous, yet something in you insists that you... Thank you, Dr. Mary, you kindly start. But, well, our teacher informed us that should anything come up, it has to go through the school first. I apologize. That's all right, she responded. I understand, it's good to be safe. A soft chuckle came from her. Wouldn't want someone or anyone that shouldn't offer. Her hand moved from your shoulder to the side of your face. Sent a small chill down your spine. After what happened with your school or better your class at USD, it's quite best to take precautions. Wouldn't you agree? You weren't sure, your tongue suddenly froze. And body tensed. A lump suddenly rose in your throat for some reason when you blinked found yourself running the dark. Twists and turns that had very little lighting, and the sound of frightening whimper behind you. Gasp, for a moment, opened your eyes finding Dr. Mary's eyes meeting with yours, smiling and waiting for your answer, yet the words would not come. Noticing this, Dr. Mary let you go and stepped back, raised a hand, set it lightly on your head. Your body jumped just a bit, she chuckled. I will inform your school of my interest in you. All right? Do not fret, little one, all right? Slowly you nodded. Glad, she turned, gave you a wave, walking away. It was quite a pleasure meeting you, dear. I look forward to reunion soon. All you could do was nod, in haze-like state. A state you remained. It rid you of your hunger and took your attention away from another figure approaching you. There you are. Ribbit Tsuyu appeared. You turned to her. There was something she noticed something off with you. That quickly went away. Oh, you were? You asked, surprised. She studied you for a moment before nodding. Why? A finger still to her lip, mussing what she just saw before answering. All the girls are needed, she said, lowering her finger. It's something the teachers have requested. Your sister is with us. We found her, but not you. She left with Yurikata and the others. I offered to find you, so she thumbed over shoulder. Let's go. April was with Yurikara. That was what you focused on. Why was she with her? Why didn't she try to find you or noticing you're stalling? Tsuyu stopped and turned around. The downcast look held in your eyes was enough to tell her. She didn't say a thing, just walked over and tugged you to follow. The third and final event was about to start for the sports festival, President Mike announced. People began wrapping up their lunch and hurried back to their seats. Though the final event hadn't started just yet, recreational side games were offered to pass the time. Those who wanted to participate could. And Mikey couldn't pass it up, sprung to the opportunity, walking with the others back onto the field. Hands up, throwing the peace sign, waving his arms, with blown kisses. His family watched, covering their faces with a hand, grunting. Not at all surprised, but still affected by his behavior. Not caring as usual, Mikey continued on with himself, wide smile and all, even throwing in a few winks. God, could he? Donnie grumbled to the side, with a long sigh. Honestly, at least April isn't here to see this. Speaking of which, he looked around for a moment among the crowd. Leo called to his brother. HM? Have you seen April and May? Donnie asked. After the last event, I haven't seen them. Raph grunted. They had lunch with their dad, remember? Geez, and you're supposed to be the smart one. Grunting back, Donnie ignored the urge to respond, but shot a sharp glare at him. One Raph matched harder. Enough, Leo told them, feeling their tension. We don't have time to squabble. We've got to keep our minds focused with the final event coming up. So, save that energy for then, okay? Raph opened his mouth to say something, for Splinter to speak. Your brother is correct. You must not fight among yourselves. That must be saved for this final event. Keep your mind studious and keen, even if. His eyes dropped to Mikey, now flexing his muscles and laughing. Forced a groan from Splinter. Some minds are elsewhere. Splinter was right about the mind being elsewhere. Leo's was that at the moment, elsewhere, or to be frank, his mind was elsewhere on a certain person whom he wished to have paired with in the second event. But he meant with red rising on his cheeks. They paired with another from class, and because of that made it to next round. Which he was glad for. Her again, his mind screamed, correcting himself. Then he had not doubt they would make to the next one. He was proud knowing, even if wished to have his fingers begin twiddling, wished to have congratulate them, her Momo. But he swallowed the rising lump in his throat. He didn't get the chance. Mikey shoved him out quickly from the arena before he could even move an inch her way. Mikey's stomach was more important the words Leo wanted to speak. Curse his brother for ruining his chance. Guess, he sighed, he'd have to wait and eventually tell her. Sitting back where he sat, uninterested in the event or games about to start, turned away about to close his eyes when he heard Donnie suddenly gasp and tap him on the shoulder. What? Leo turned to him. Both Donnie and Raph's eyes were wide and mouths dropped open. Neither of them looking at Leo, not sure why. The only clue Leo had was from Donnie's pointed finger to the arena. Following it, Leo looked. His mouth nearly dropped like his brother's. Instead his cheeks ran hot red over green. From what he saw, others were surprised too. Mikey down below had to blink a few times to make sure he was seeing this right. He wasn't sure if he should laugh or well, this was just something he wasn't expecting at all. Something you agreed with Mikey despite not knowing his thoughts. This was quite odd despite you know what the purpose of it was. Still, you didn't expect to do something like this, even though you had wanted to try it before after seeing a few movies and did a tryout back at your old school, though was not deemed adequate. Now, that didn't seem the case and you couldn't stop smiling in such an outfit. While April didn't share her younger sister's enthusiasm. It was more as her face read, mild annoyance wrinkled with anger that sharply held in her eyes like steel. The moment she and the other girls from class stepped out into the arena wearing the same orange cheerleading uniform the hires were in, to the choker, to white stockings, and 2 pom-poms, she even put her hair up into a bun, Yurikara suggested. April felt something was wrong when Yurikara told her. At first April didn't want to believe it, but Momo, being vice president of the class, assured her it was a request given by their teacher. So it had to be followed. Also, April felt Momo was the type that followed the rules, so there was really no arguing. Now, her muscles quivered just thinking about it. Those damn 2 Kaminari and Minoru, she'd get them for this. Oh, she was going mess up their minds so bad she was. Just thrilled. You were thrilled beyond anything. You couldn't stop waving enthusiastically and bouncing up and down on your toes that you soon just floated and illuminated, literally. You were glowing in an aura of golden yellow, gushing from ear to ear. Next to Tsuyu and Mina, the pink-skinned girl, April stood next to Momo and Yurikara, fuming, locking her glowing eyes at Kaminari and Minoru, ready to send what she wanted to at them. About to when she heard her sister's delighted laugh, turned to her smiling face, calmed her down, seeing you, smirked to herself, shaking her head. As you kept waving to the crowd, Kirby, who sat back in his seat, smiled seeing you and that smile, while a few others scowled hard. Their eyes watched you, looked to the actual cheerleaders and study their movements, trying to mimic them. Flew over to join them, settled right to them and joined them. Though your kicks were a bit lagging, you managed to follow. Momo and Gyro, spotting you, shout for you to stop. Well, Gyro did at least, but you didn't and kept it up. From where he was, Izuku couldn't help but smile to himself seeing you. It made him chuckle. For some reason he wasn't surprised by your reaction to it all. "This is quite fun," you exclaimed, jumping up and down. Didn't notice a hand reaching for you, snatched you back by the collar of your uniform, pulled and took you back to the others, released you. "Don't enjoy the embarrassment," Gyro said. "But I am not feeling that way," you inform her, smiling. Something she told you to wipe off your face, but you didn't and kept it on. "May," April raised a pom-pom, gestured you over. "Over here, hurry up." Listening you go to her, she was standing with Ida and Izuku. The minute you arrived, jumped on Izuku, taking him by the arm. "Izuku-chan," you squeal, giving his arm a squeeze. "I found you, at least, I did." He smiled awkwardly for a second, before realizing what you just said. "Huh? Wait, what do you mean?" You didn't get a chance to answer. Present Mike took over. His voice boomed through the stadium, riling up and explained the final event. All the teams that made it, the final event would be a one-on-one match. You, April, and the guys' hearts just dropped. That was unexpected. Noticing the flushed look on both sisters, Izuku addressed it. "Are you two okay?" he asked. You and April exchanged looks. Before answering, April did. "It's nothing," she smiled a bit. "Just didn't think the last event would be one-on-one. I mean, if we think about it," she looked to you for a second. "It's kind of like sparring, really, so?" Giving it a thought, it seemed like such. "Yes, I agree. Like sparring, and like our sparring we improve ourselves." Ida and Izuku look at one another for a second, exchanging worried looks. "The one-on-one," Ida started, pushing up his glasses, "are quite different from a simple sparring session. It requires those who've made it to go up against one another till there is a victor. Using our quirks, considering the face, if either one of you are pitted against one of your friends, you will surely have to give it all and—" "SHH," April hushed him sharply. He looked to her, her eyes glared hard back, warning him not to say a thing. Dropped them to May, then back to him. He didn't follow. Izuku did, and his heart dropped a bit. "Something you noticed?" Izuku-chan, called to him softly, looked to him. "What's wrong?" His eyes fall to you, opened his mouth to close and give you a smile. "It's nothing." It had to be something because he seemed heavy inside. Your eyes tried to search his, but his smile made it rather challenging, so you accepted it. A few students behind you, eyes pinned upon the American girl, hard. They had to restrain themselves from acting upon the brutal thoughts surfacing in their mind. Now was not the time, it wasn't. They reminded themselves, grudgingly, if they acted right now then, it'd be for nothing. Plus, with them watching from the seats making sure it was going well, saw they had decided to go rogue, it wouldn't be pleasant. The mere thought of it sent a cold shiver down their spine. If that wasn't enough, knowing who else wouldn't take their choice would be far worse. Swallowing the rising lumps stuck in their throat, they couldn't go rogue. Just follow the orders given, the direction, the right direction. Unlike a certain person, their eyes remain on them. The choice they decided to make was wrong. To think when they were little, how they used to follow them to lead them out. They used to hold hands, their eyes dropped to their own hands, linger on them. Even after all this time they could still feel it. Though faint and nearly cold, it was still there, that warmth, felt like a tingle on the tips of their finger. And their voice that was filled with comfort and kindness, while also layered with hope and determination. Providing the light for them both, pulling them along through the many twists and turns through the darkness. Never letting go, they promised that. At least, they did. Before it was only them who had to find their way through, with not hand to hold on to. No more words to guide them, no light follow. Like they needed, clenched their fist. They made their choice, and yet lift their eyes up towards the crowd, just as they thought those sharp eyes pinned on them. Flashing a warning, clenching their teeth, hiss softly to the side so they would not see and give a nod. Now, they take a breath, time to put on their game face. Turn to the front where Midnight now taking over, and again the pink-haired American stood there with bright eyes and her hands lightly on her chest, for the pro hero. Reason unknown. Every word Midnight spoke the girl just leaned closer taking them in. Holding a box Midnight instructed those who were in the final event, the one-on-one to draw lots in order to organize matchups. By then Leo and his brothers joined the others, Leo slowly inching to Momo. Students ready, until one raised his hand. Myheroacademia withdrew himself from the competition. Shocking everyone, you turn around with the others still holding on to Izuku's arm, something a certain flame hero did not approve. Wondering why Myheroacademia would take himself out, he informed everyone his pride would not allow him because he couldn't remember anything really from the cavalry battle until the end. But, you jump in, he looks at you. You and your team won. You gained quite enough points, also, you smile. You did well. Helping out your team, why would you say you don't remember? If you'd like I could recall my own memory and relay in detail your involvement. I appreciate that, but no, he declined. If I don't know how I did then, or if it was through my own strength, then I cannot move further. That wasn't right. But you protest. April hushed you, shaking her head. Leave it alone. You wanted to, but it was hard. About to open your mouth again, feel April's hand rest on your shoulder, stopping you. So you didn't say a single word and let Myheroacademia withdraw him. He wasn't the only one. A person from Class 1B also withdrew themselves. After some thought, Midnight accepted their withdrawal, with the spot needing to be filled, so the next team was chosen. From Class 1B, Team Kendo. However, the team decided to give the spot to Team Tetsu. With the teams all complete and lots drawn, the matchups were set. Izuku vs Shinso. Shoto vs Shiro. Shiozaki vs Kaminari. Ida vs Mei. Mina vs Aoyama. Fumikage vs Momo. Bakugou vs Ochako. April vs Leo. Donnie vs Jun. Raph vs Hisui, a girl with light green cracked skin, orange eyes, and black mohawk. Mikey vs Mei. The first match of the final event was about to start, with the recreational games filling in the passing. Many of the finalists used this time to prepare themselves. Leo took to mediating, which made sense considering his quirk. Raph didn't seem to care nor was in the mood despite his opponent coming over and introducing herself. Donnie sat with reeking nerves. Mikey was well, he included himself in the recreational games despite not needed to. April took to preparing herself too. As for yourself, preparing yourself was something wanted to do with April, but she left before you could even get the chance, so you were left on your own and continued with the other girls in cheerleading. You being the one most into it. Cheering the loudest among the girls of your class, cheers that reached a certain spiky grayed hair hero in training. Turned his attention the minute he did a hot rush went through him. That is, he changed into his other form, it would surely melt. She's so his thoughts nearly screamed, gulped, she's damn it. Get yourself together, acting like this is beneath you. Suck up and be a man, go over already. Talking to yourself does nothing, go talk to her. Just say hi, damn it. It isn't that hard. Just a simple hello, what's the worst that can happen? Huh? Excuse me? Your voice enters their thoughts. They froze, though you hadn't noticed and kept going. We are to start the last event, are you not a part of the next event? They said nothing, their back to you gave a slow heavy nod. I assumed as much, I came to get you, their hearts skipped a beat hearing that, taking it another way than what you meant. As you remained the only one still standing. Your fellow classmates had tried yelling for you, but you did not respond. So I came, we must leave. Are you coming? Swallowing the lodged lump in their throat, it was now or never. Not the spot they expected to do this, but fate was giving them yet another chance after so many before. They couldn't mess it up no matter what. Yes. They would turn around to you, open their mouth, and say the first thing that they've wanted to say for so long. The moment they did, you'd at first be stunned, but that cute bright smile will appear with hopefully a bit of blush on those cheeks, and you'd respond back. From there, the rest of it would play out all the way to the end. Yes. Building up the courage, turn around, open their mouth and find the spot empty. The American wasn't there, she was gone. Again. Damn it. Defeated. Again, with no choice but to accept walk to their seat with dropped shoulders so the first match could begin. Everyone took their seats, waiting with anticipation for the first match. Cementos finished building the fighting arena. Now it could begin. Stakes were high for this last event. Presentation was everything, if not more. Should they perform below expectations, well, that just wouldn't do. Not at all. Their reputation could not be tarnished if they wanted this transaction to go on as agreed. Their product would shine and show as much as they could even after the long years apart. They'd present a display that would prove every equation and formula they formulated together to create what they produced. To prove once and for all who was more superior. After all, that's what it came down with quirks anyway. Adjusting their small framed glasses, focus their sharp amber eyes on the match soon to start. A pity, they frowned softly, it couldn't have been their products first. How unfortunate. Then again, the probability of either of them matching up in the first round wasn't high. It was anyone's game really, the same as they remembered many years ago. A bore. Yet at the same time thrilling, standing before the eyes of many to display the flashiness of their quirks. Only those strong and smart enough made it to the final round, and they made it. Carried themselves with another to the final. It was just the two of them back then, and back then they scoff hard. Back then it was them who shined. Not the other way around. Slammed their fist down, made the small body sitting next to them flinch slightly. Ignoring it, their heated amber eyes remain on the arena, steadily. Watching the two who would start come out, the one with messy indigo hair they could care less about. It was the boy with the green hair that held their attention. Such a weak-looking child, it amazed them how far he came without showcasing any use of his quirk. Why their product latched to such a ridiculous thing was beyond them in more way than one. But clearly there was something. Yet at the same time they knew it wasn't a good look. Slide their eyes back to the flamed hero, whose eyes set flatly upon the green-haired boy. Shimmering with other emotions they cared less out, only paying attention the disapproval gleam held in those eyes. One they both shared. Something had to be done about that green-haired boy. He entered the arena now, crossing their legs sharply over the other one, mused to themselves. Yes, something indeed would have to be done about the boy. The attachment formed would ruin everything. Hopefully, they sighed, their other product would child would meet him in the next round, should he pass, and dispose of him. Having talked with their child already on what to do next during lunch, they knew the plan and knew what to do, going over it a few times just to make sure. Idiot child had a thick skull like lead, but was hollow like a barren land. Pitiful really, to know their genes ran through them. It was such a disgrace. Even when they were younger, always crying and unable to do damn simple thing. The weakest among all their products, lagging behind in every single damn lesson given. Every assignment, every test, no matter the amount of tutor that was given. They simply just did not excel in anything. Markings low barely increased after the years. The missing piece of the puzzle was gone. It was a small percentage, not one to get excited about. Just enough to allow them this much freedom. Thinking about it now, they should have sent in their last and latest product. Dropped their eyes to the small figures sitting silent and still next to them. Those small round golden hazel eyes focused sharply on the arena, like a hawk. Good, as expected. Raising a hand, rest it lightly upon their head, stroking their short wavy sliver hair gently for a moment. Let's hope subject #3 can do as presented. The first match was soon to start. Splinter sat back with other teachers minus present Mike and Aizawa. His eyes remained forward and focused on the arena Cementos nearly finished constructing. Once it was done, then the matches could begin, and he wasn't all that thrilled about it. Despite displaying such when his sons made it to the last event, as a father should be. Yes, he was proud of them back home for their accomplishments. Here, though, he did not share in the joy that one would expect him to, even if Nezu agreed to his terms and he had his reasons why. Reasons that turned and knotted his stomach each time it rose and worsened each time he pushed it back down. There was a reason why he wanted his sons to remain in the shadows. Now, they've been in the eyes for all the world to see. He just hoped, despite knowing and having a feeling in the back of his mind they already knew, that they might not give it much thought. But he sighed to himself it wouldn't surprise him if they did. His youngest was the most thrilled of all his sons about making it. To be scouted, to be sought by heroes. He was leaning to All Might taking him under his wing and offering an internship or something, despite the hero already a teacher so it wouldn't work out. Nevertheless, Mikey was determined to make himself known. Something Splinter was against and quite frankly hoped none of his sons would advance beyond their first matches. The only peace he had was knowing he eldest and youngest were up against April and May. Familiar faces so it wouldn't be much to worry about. Hopefully his students would treat it like a regular training session. Hopefully. As for Raph and Donnie, their opponents he didn't know much about. The young woman Raph was against Seam, well despite her rather rough cut-edge appearance. Did go over and introduce herself to Raph. She seemed to possess sportsman qualities. As for the other, Jun, the one who partnered with May during the cavalry battle, said a slight quiver in his stomach and Splinter wasn't sure why. The boy seemed all right. Not much he could read off him. Besides the laid-back and seemingly friendly approach he presented, there wasn't much else to read. After the second event ended, he was gone. Splinter noticed despite his attention on his sons and students. There was no presence the boy was even there, not even during lunch at all that could be seen. He only appeared when it was time to return. He walked in with the other students, though trailed behind them a bit, lingering oddly close to Hitoshi Shinso. Then again, from what Splinter could recall from the few classes he's taught so far, even if for 1 day and a half, that boy Jun was from the same class as Shinso. The general education area, yes, Splinter mused carefully watching the young man now sitting with the other students in his class. His eyes were closed as if sleeping or bored. He seemed calm and quiet, even when Splinter first laid his eyes on him. Yet, behind that presentation, Splinter felt something lofty. It gleamed slightly in those silver eyes that reminded the Hamato of vengeful seeking blade. That was masked in its sheath. Worried Splinter. Even more so knowing Donnie was the one to go up against Jun. The young man hadn't shown his quirk or what it might be. Not even during the cavalry battle. Splinter expected that much, but there was nothing. Did he show it in the first event? Splinter was unsure. He couldn't quite remember. There was a shade in his memory that he couldn't recall. The more he tired, the thicker it became. So he didn't bother despite having a feeling he was sure he saw the boy use his quirk. Whatever the case, he prayed Donnie would fare well. If not, then that was fine as well. In his seat, Jun sat 2 seats away from those in his class. Eyes closed and earbuds he slipped in, blocking out everyone and everything. Listened to the tunes, bobbed his head slowly to their tunes. A thin smile edged his lips, but he hid it well so others wouldn't see, and by others he meant them in the crowd. Closing his eyes and popping in some tunes helped to block out their eyes, he felt. He knew he should be paying attention to what was happening right now, but honestly he could care less. That wasn't his main concern. No, he only cared about one thing. Well, one person really. There was the other one should they make it past their first match, and he'd be lucky enough to get them first before getting his prize. After all, he could finally get his chance. He did make sure they got this far after all. It was the least he could do after all. Years ago, they carried him all the way to the end. He could finally return it. He would have been able to sooner if he was saddled in general education. But he was how degrading, really. Such a level was beneath him, really. All those here, not just in this department, but the school in general. He wasn't sure how much he could actually handle it. Being around, opening one eyes peeked out at his chummy classmates, all excited on the prospect one of their own. Hitoshi Shinso made it this far. They were proud of him too, not like he needed their praise really. None of it mattered, though it was interesting that Shinso did make this far. Then again, it wasn't much a surprise. Jun dropped his eye to Shinso down in the arena. Standing there nonchalantly, hands in his pockets and face that spoke boredom. A brief laugh left Jun's lips, not sure why it did, but it did. Closing his eye back, returned to his own serene place. And there he saw memories that covered his thoughts in a blinding light. Their light was always blinding, no, it radiated every time in the darkness. That light, that warm light that guided him to a place of security, false security now. That light that always casted protection against anything that came at them with everyone uncertain twist and turn they were forced to take to endure. They always repelled it, everything bad. And once they did, Jun's mind went further in memories. They held their hand out, that damn hand he wanted to crush the second he held out his, and they took it. They shook it with that pissing smile on that used to be for him back when they were younger. A smile that left him, a smile that now he realized mocked him. He knew why they always led with him following behind. Why they left everything and never looked back. Throughout every memory that was there. They stopped their trails, tests, and tutoring. They were weak. Acting as if they were strong, back then. When in reality they just got up and ran away. It sickened Jun knowing they shared the blood. It was as they said, they've become domesticated. Yet, despite those words he snarled softly, they still held this highness for them after so many years. When he stepped forward to take their place and show them he was better. Those their eyes just cast over him. The second they saw them on the news and moment they felt them knew for sure their missing piece had come back, and that's when everything about him was forgotten. All attention turned back to them. It was unfair. It wasn't right. He slammed his fist down on his armrest, causing a small dent. Opened his eyes quickly, looked around. Good, no one saw him. Taking a breath, breathe. He couldn't get upset. Not now. It'd ruin everything. He couldn't have that. Not when what he was doing could show them how good he was. Opening an eye again, this time directed at Class 1A. At a particular American student, not that weak Hamato he was to fight, which to be clear wasn't a challenge, but to the other American. Who sat wearing that cheerful smile that danced in those eyes. Shaking those pom-poms in the air for Shinso's opponent that curled Jun's lips in a flat frown. Izuku. That cheering was all for him, the weakling-looking freak. He didn't understand why they were attached to him when they used to be like that with no. He shouted in his mind, that was in past. That was when he was weak, when they were weak too. He didn't need that anymore. He didn't need affection from them. He wasn't 6 anymore. Closing his eye, drowned deeper into this mind. Pushing past everything that he no longer needed. Only stopped in the part of his mind that fueled him. He'd make sure they both make into the next round. After all, reunions were a good thing. What just happened? You weren't sure. Just a second ago Izuku's fight began. You couldn't wait. Cheering for him on the sidelines from your seat. Pom-poms up and waving, shouting his name again and again. To suddenly find it over, all you did was simply blink and the match was done. Izuku came out the victor, which was great. It was just that you couldn't remember how, in that momentarily of darkness, something happened. No matter how many times you tired to play over and over in your head, you just couldn't remember. Like some sort of shade draped over and everything faded away, and for a moment something you saw, something no heard it. A voice, not any voice, but a voice that your body felt cold. It trembled with it, your chest more so over your heart began tighten. Crippled pain sprang from it, your pom-poms lowered and you just stooped. Your posture just stooped. There was not an ounce of excitement or anything. Nothing around you was heard, only that voice. A voice that cried and cried. It cried your name in voice so frightened and scared, your heart clenched you. There was something about that voice that caused you to stare at one of your hands, past the pom-poms. This emptiness you felt, yet at the same time something in you felt as if there should be something there. A touch, no, a hold of some kind that... Now that was a twist, April chuckled, nudging you. What did you think? You said nothing. For a moment. Blink a few times, register April's question for a moment. What were you to say? You weren't sure, no words came to mind. Yet, you needed to say something if not. April would know something was wrong. Inhaling quietly, raise a smile. It was most wonderful, you exclaim, waving your pom-poms. I am glad that Izuku-chan won. There was no doubt in my mind that he would not come out victoriously. April studied you for a moment. You kept your smile on, hoping she would take it. I'll be honest, she turned back to the arena smirking a bit. Shrugged. I had my doubts. I mean that Shinso guy, his quirk was interesting. He gave a command and next thing Midoriya was about to walk out the arena. You gasped slightly. She kept going. Not sure how, but he managed to snap himself out. After that, well, he took down Shinso. Threw him out the ring. It was a twist. You nod, settling down, turn to the arena where you see Shinso being congratulated by his classmates. It was a warm and touching sight. You couldn't help but smile. A smile that boiled someone's blood. They turned away to avoid it, otherwise they might just do something. Taking a deep, hard breath, exhale and count backwards. until the fire in them cooled. Remind themselves it wasn't time yet, not yet. Just a few more matches, then they'd have their chance and make them pay. Taking another breath, a small smirk curled on their lips. The way your face looked, lost and confused at what happened, brought them some joy. It was small, but they enjoyed nonetheless. It was hard not to snicker, so they did. What's so funny? Shinso's voice cut through their enjoyment. Approached his silver hair and isolated classmate. Jun turned to him, no longer snickering. His smirk remained, gave a shrug. Nothing really. Shifted in his seat, cast his eyes to the arena. Sucks you lost, he smirked mockingly. Came all this way to lose in the first round. Thought you had a powerful quirk. Ignoring him, Shinso took the one of the many empty seats by Jun. You should worry about your own match. Isn't it against the Hamato? Jun closed eyes and scoffed. It's not a real Hamato, so there isn't anything worry about. It's a Hamato nonetheless, Shinso countered. Considering who his father is, I wouldn't be surprised the training they've done. So you might just have your hands full. Jun half laughed at the words, opened one eye in Shinso's direction, chuckled. Hamato or not, he leaned back further in his seat. Still not a match for me in any way. Besides, he relaxed, arms behind his head. I'm more interested in someone else. Cocky bastard was what Shinso wanted to say, but knew at the same time it wouldn't do anything. Jun would just either roll it off or laugh it off. For someone in general education, he sure held himself high. Then again, Shinso gave it a thought. He sort of had every right. In a way, for those who knew of his quirk that at first glance didn't seem like much. But that was nothing but a ploy. That, and not to mention some other factors. Which begged the question as to why someone like Jun was in general education. A question that he wasn't aware would eventually be answered. The same with you. If Izuku was alright. When you asked about him, Ida and Yorikara told you that he left to go to Recovery Girl to get mended. So you rose and left to find him. April told you not to take too long. You promised her that you wouldn't and went to find Izuku. You needed to congratulate him. Hurrying down the hall in the direction of Recovery Girl's temporary office, your feet pick up speed to see Izuku. When you saw him, you would say all that April told you, so he would know that you saw him, even if you didn't remember a moment of it. He didn't need to know. Feeling yourself getting closer add more speed. It would be easier if you flew, but it was best if you saved your strength for your match with Mikey. You laughed a bit at it, you and Mikey against each other. Like a simply sparring match back home, though the way you and him did it was different. It might come to a shock to everyone when they saw it. Hopefully they would be able to understand. Anyway, back to Izuku. Spotting not too far ahead Recovery Girl's office, your heart swelled. Throwing up your pom-poms, get ready to shout. When you hear two voices from inside. One was Recovery Girl's, the other one, you weren't sure yet their presence seemed familiar. They seemed to be talking about someone, you weren't sure who. You didn't want to be rude, so remained quiet. So, he saw you? Recovery Girl spoke first. The other gruff voice answered. That's a good thing. What was a good thing? You wondered, a question that wasn't as important right now. Raise a hand and politely knock. Excuse me, Recovery Girl Sama, may I come in? A bit of rustling was heard and a raise of panic for a moment before the door opened, and All Might was standing there, big smile and all, towering over you in all his might. You were so busy looking past him that you didn't notice the beads of sweat upon his brow. May, dear, Recovery Girl greeted you with a warm and welcoming smile. What can I do for you? You didn't answer. Your eyes were looking around every inch of the room. There was no sign of Izuku anywhere. He was here. He had to be, the others told you. Well, you stammer a bit, walking in a bit, arms to your side. I came to find Izuku-chan, but your voice drops a bit. It seems he is not here. She shook her head. I'm afraid not, dear. He left just a little while ago. Oh, your eyes and heart dropped. I am late. Well. Both heroes exchanged looks for a moment, dropped their eyes to you. I'm sure you can catch him, Recovery Girl said, pointing the cane in the direction he went. He shouldn't be that far. Her words brought your smile back a bit. Yes, you nod. You are correct. Perhaps if I hurry I can catch him. Thank you. Giving her a polite bow and All Might take your leave. The two heroes watch you. After a minute All Might releases himself from his larger form, wiping his brow. sighed. That was close. Recovery girl chuckled softly to herself. I highly doubt it would matter to her. What a sweet and adorable child she is. A bit spacey at times, but I'm glad. Toshinori nodded. Yeah, honestly I was surprised really when she came back with the O'Neills. They've treated her well, compared to before. His voice dropped. And it seems her quirk has been, well, he looked to Recovery Girl. She understood. Yes, it's good though. Elizabeth did a good job. It's a shame on what happened to the poor dear. She's such a caring woman. It does please me to see her daughter here. The darling looks like her, though of course her quirk is a bit better than her mother's. A chuckle slipped out. Toshinori shared with her. She made a life of her own, Recovery Girl kept going. A family. Hero life was never for her. Nevertheless, she stayed by her sister's side. Speaking of which, Toshinori changed topic to much serious note. Has there been any word of well, you know? Recovery Girl gave it a thought. Worry wrinkled on her brow. No, nothing. After what happened all those years ago, I'm not sure, only that I've heard rumors she's reformed. If she's caught wind of her child being back, I wouldn't be surprised if she tries. That woman is driven and crafty. Brutal too. I worry if found out what that might mean for her. That child, I'm thankful, doesn't remember the horrors. Elizabeth did well. If she has caught wind, Toshinori spoke rather weary. Do you think there is a chance that she might just, We just need to keep our heads and eyes open, Recovery Girl said. That's all we can do. For all of them. For some reason a chill ran down your spine suddenly. You weren't sure why. Ignoring it, continue searching for Izuku. You hadn't reached him, yet it seemed rather hopeless. You tried to locate him, but nothing. Which was just strange. Hearing the announcement for the next match to start, you could care less. Turning the corner, still focused on finding Izuku, you didn't notice the large, bored figure before you and run right into them. Sorry, you apologize, rubbing your nose, shaking off the slight sting. A shadow cast over you, an imposing one that commanded your attention. Lifting your eyes, find two gruffy and hard turquoise eyes staring back. They looked familiar, just much older. Who was this flamed man who stared at you in this way? It was clear you didn't know him. Endeavor saw it as his eyes sized you up and down. He took a step closer. You held in your flinch. Take a step back. He took a step again. You did the same thing. He scoffed. Even more when he saw your pom-poms. The flames on him increased, produced a small yelp from you. He ignored it. Leaned in and spoke in words that left you confused. Don't you disappoint or make a fool of me. You'd better be worth the amount, girl. Amount? You repeated, confused. What amount? He said nothing further, just simply moved aside so you could go. Still no answer. Seeing you were not going to get one, take the exit and hurry away. Not once looking back. Chan. April turned around in her seat to the sound of her sister's voice. Relief swept across her. May, she stood up. Izuku, who had returned, turned around, glad to see you back. Yurikara and Ida as well. Where were you? April asked, hugging you the minute you got to where she was. It was tight so you couldn't answer. Even if you wanted to, what could you really say? What could you tell her about what that flamed hero said to you in the halls? Or the fact that you couldn't even find Izuku, nor sense him, or anything it seemed for that matter. You became lost for a bit. Before finding your way, it was like a maze. A feeling that sent a familiar tingle down your spine, that you held in. April didn't need to know that you knew. Your eyes fall for a moment. An expression that was noticed by another. You knew that if April found out it would cause her to worry or assume something. You didn't want that. So, you did the best thing your mind quickly put together, smile and look up to her. I was most amazed by all that was around me. My thoughts became lost. You mean, you became lost in your thoughts, Ida corrected you, pushing up his glasses. You nod, still smiling. Yes, that is correct. I became lost in my thoughts. I am sorry. I did not meant to cause you any worry. April raised a hand and sent on your head lightly. That's okay. Just try not to get lost in them again, okay? If you did, you might have missed your match with Mikey. She thumbed over her shoulder at him. Hearing his name, he turned and flashed you a wide smile with a hang-loose hand gesture. With a lovable chuckle. One you returned though with less spirit than his. It would be a shame should I miss our match. You look back to April, lifting your pom-poms and giving them a slight shake. I cannot wait for your one-chan. I will make sure to cheer the loudest. She chuckled. I'm sure you will. Now, she turned around to her seat, letting you go. Let's sit down. The other matches will begin soon. Abiding you follow and take your seat right behind Izuku. Once you sat down, he turned his attention away from the arena for a moment to you. Sorry, May, he said. If I know you were coming, I would have waited, he whispered. That is all right, you smile, whispering back. I just wanted to congratulate you on a job well done. You have made it to the next round. How wonderful. He scratched his cheek with a bashful smile and light nod. Yeah, well, I'm glad too. It was tough for a bit, but I managed to break through. Thanks for cheering for me. I really appreciate it. A light heat rushed your cheeks from his words. From the small appreciative smile he had, that held your attention. His smile, it clicked something in you for a moment. A face, a young face, a child's face, tired, bruised, and streaks of dried tears staining their cheeks. You couldn't make out the upper half of their face, it was obscured. But you could see their smile that was just like Izuku's, just tired, but the same regardless, and hear a voice. They spoke your name and hot, sharp pain shot through your mind. You nearly lost consciousness for a moment. As quickly as it came it went, and everything, all your surroundings came back. What brought you back to your sense was a strong, cold, nearly freezing feeling in the air. It was as if the temperature suddenly dropped and winter came. Wrapping your arms around you a bit, to warm yourself, find the source of the sudden temperature drop. Looking up, your mouth nearly dropped at what it was. Down in the arena, a massive amount of ice shooting out from one corner of the arena, nearly out the whole stadium, cast a large shadow over a good amount. It was amazing as it was frightful, caused you to shudder and shiver from it. Your limbs couldn't stop shaking. This was who made something like that? Your question received an answer. Down below, Midnight covered herself slightly in ice, announced the winner of the match, Shoto. Leaning over a bit to see, notice it was the two-colored hair boy from class. Two things: one, you finally found out his name, and second, why were you suddenly afraid of him? Noticing the ashen look spreading on his sister's face, April reached out and calmly set a hand on yours. Felt you jolt a bit from her touch. May, she softly spoke. Enough for Donnie, who was close by to hear, and Izuku and Yurikara. They turned to you. Are you okay? There was no response from you, April asked again. This time her eyes began to glow slightly. Stopped when Izuku spoke. It's okay, May. He reached out and moment the tip of his fingers brushed on your hand. You shot up from your seat, startling them. April rose with you. May, what is it? You still said nothing. Turning away, set your pom-poms down, excuse yourself, and hurry away, ignoring April's call. What was wrong? You weren't sure. All you knew as you walked quickly down the empty halls, fanning yourself a bit, was your heart was racing, nearly exploding, and your stomach felt rock hard. On top of that, your mind kept screaming, no more, no more. All because of what you saw. You couldn't shake this feeling. Your mind became heavy and swirling. The more you thought of it, the more your heart raced and stomach knotted. The trembling of your lip and chin hadn't stopped. Even when you tired to make it, a part of you wanted to cry, but another part wanted to scream. You weren't sure which one to do, so focused on what was happening internally, you didn't pay attention to what was before you and knocked right into something solid and angry, but also sad. Falling back, land on the floor. Not that it hurt or anything. You still rubbed your lower back when a familiar hand reached out, followed by a familiar voice that froze and rooted you in your spot. Sorry, Shoto apologized, his hand extended, waiting for you to take it. Your heart thumped and eyes widened up at him, held your hands close, and for a moment remained still, before shaking your head and finding the right words. And no, I'm fine, your words came out in a tremble. He seemed not to pay attention and kept his hand out. I can see that. Still, here. He moved his hand closer. You weren't sure what happened. You shirked. No, and slapped his hand away. The echo rang through the halls. Shoto stood there, a blank look on. He wasn't sure what just happened or why you reacted like that. You didn't either. Quickly you pick yourself up and take a few steps back. Drop your eyes down for a second, shut them. Turn around and hurry back the way you came. What in the world just... You didn't under what just happened, it didn't make sense, and... Wham. You hit something solid again, this time almost knocking them over. If arms hadn't wrapped around you suddenly, about to go into flight mode, raise a fist and... Whoa, Izuku shrieked a bit. May, it's me. Registering his voice, blink a few after the fifth one, see that it was him. Staring at you with eyebrows drawn together. Izuku-chan, you stammer in a question, blink once more. Izuku-chan, what? You look around, confusion knotted in your eyes. What is going on? And why? You notice his hands on either of your shoulder. Are you holding me? Realizing this, he lets you go instantly. Red rushed on his face. Sorry, he exclaimed, creating a foot distance between you two. That's all right, you give a light smile. Remember your question from before. Look around. What is going on? Why are you here? He was taken back by what you said, rose a brow to it. I was going to ask you the same thing. Are you okay? You tilt your head at his question. You ran off suddenly, you've been gone for about 15 minutes and well. He bit his lip a bit. Is everything okay? Your head remained tilted. Yes, why would it not be? Is something wrong? Trying to read you, Izuku was sure if you meant it or you were just either way the way you spoke and the tone of your voice told him you were. Well, he began. Midoriya, came another familiar voice down the hall. Did you find her? Oh, Mushirao appeared and walked over carrying your pom-poms. You did. You okay? He asked, setting a hand on your shoulder. You nod. He smiled. That's good. Here, he set the items in your hands. You might need these to cheer on your sister. Her match is starting soon. And he was right. April's match was the next one up. After Ida and May, she and Leo rose from their seats hearing and seeing their names and headed down the arena. Both entering on opposite sides, the crowd cheering and roaring, except for two, Kirby and Splinter. They sat in silence watching their eldest child walk up the steps, a wave of calmness and focal in their similar blues eyes that flickered with a small flame of determination. Those from Class 1 watched. Some leaned in while others held in their comments and breath. A few mummers swam through a couple, but that was it. Donnie and his brothers watched too. Raph was more eyes closed as he didn't really care what was happening, wishing it was all over. Mikey nudged Donnie. With a big grin on. This is going to be good, he laughed a bit. Leo and April, duking it out, he threw up his fist and gave a few jabs in the air. Donnie scooted over a bit to avoid being hit. Kept his attention on the two down below. It's going to be more than duking it out, they're both using their quirks. April's had more training with than Leo. Then again, he noted, Leo has far more training than April in combat, so it could be seen as 50-50. Really? Mikey fanned that away. Bro, April's mental. Her quirk, she's dual type. She can mess with Leo's mind or just easily push him out with a simple hand wave. Remember our training with Teach. Donnie remembered and countered. Even if April's is mental, Leo's can prevent hers. Remember, Mikey took a second to think about it, as Present Mike introduced the two. Gave a small nod. See? Donnie stressed. That's why I said it is 50-50, though we just found out about out quirks, which I'm still wondering how we never knew about them before, he said to the side. Cleared his voice and kept going. What one lacks the other has. It could be anyone's match. Besides, we know how good Leo has become since using it. Oh yeah, Mikey chuckled, scratching the back of his head. It's a good thing Sensei had us train before all this. If not, we wouldn't become so good with our quirks. Donnie's eyes dropped slightly to the side. At least you guys have good ones, he muttered to himself. It pained him saying those words, but he knew it was true and the fact was there. Soon, his match would come up and if he didn't perform as well as his brothers and friends, then what good was it having the Hamato name? Besides, recalling what Aizawa said after his evaluation on each of their quirks. Their sort of entrance exam in some ways, without the robots. When it came Donnie's, Aizawa wasn't shy in holding back and said what still stung the turtle. Compared the others, his quirk was not really up to caliber. Not that it wasn't good, it was well, maybe it would be best if he just dropped out and well avoid facing being humiliated in front of everyone. At least Mikey out of all people had a quirk that would work in the path of a hero or ninja. Leo's most defiantly, thinking of his elder brother, Donnie returned his attention back the arena. By now both April and Leo made to the stage, standing on either side. Their eyes locked. If looked closely, there could be a small smirk on April. While Leo remained calm, he had to, otherwise, well, his quirk wouldn't really work, and right now he needed it too. This wasn't going to be like normal sparring between them. Not that they haven't spared without weapons, it was just, this time their weapons required a different approach and handle. This will be interesting, Aizawa observed closely at the two, his eyes shifting from April to Leo. Let's see what the young Hamato will bring. His quirk is an interesting one, befitting for his role. It requires concentration, something he clearly grasped. But his hold can be a downfall. Even so, it's still strong. Now, for her, with her dual type, she might have to rely on one. Nevertheless, it could still work. She has the most understanding and usage of her quirk than the others, even more so than her mother. She just has to be able to multitask. Without what's in her sight, she can't really do much. This match might just 50-50. His thoughts were shared with another, sitting in the stands, their eyes sharply upon April, watching closely, tap their well-done manicure finger on the armrest. The small figure sitting polished next to them, slide their dark, wide, innocent silver eyes to the gesture. Quietly, their eyes watched the gesture of them, questions swell in their eyes, and bottom lip trembled, wanting to say something but swallowed it down. Remembered to remain silent. It was wise not to make any sort of gesture when the person sitting next to them act like this. Though it didn't show, there was fury in those eyes, like heated daggers ready to plunge themselves into their victim. A look someone else had. Turning away, look back at the arena. Their eyes stay on April, so that was the girl. Though they had limited knowledge about her, they had enough their young mind was able to make an understanding. Still, they often wondered what type of person April was despite all that was said about her. So focused on April, they didn't notice a hand raising up besides until it rested lightly on their hair. Their body nearly jolted if they didn't hold it back, knowing that touch sent a shrilling chill down their spine. Still, they remained still and listened, as they calmly stroked their hair. "Let's see what my dearest Lizzie has left her child," they said with a hint of mockery in their voice that shook with quiet fury. A fury that remained rooted even after all this time. Sitting up straight, they adjust themselves well and run a hand out over any wrinkles upon their white blazer. Fix their glasses a bit. Produce a small thinning smile, sat back and watched. That tinging feeling jumping from the tips of his fingers was the same Leo felt back in New York, when he stood before Aoyaza. During his quirk evaluation was almost the same the feeling. Sort of there when he first started off as leader, and he and his brothers went to the surface for the first time in their life. Standing here in the arena with hundreds, if not thousands including those watching, eyes on him right now. April too, but he was feeling it more. Yeah, it was sort of like that feeling. With his heart rapidly beating in his chest, and small beads of sweat building on his forehead, he still remained calm on the outside. April seemed that way too, from the way she stood there, with a small smirk on. A playful one but serious nonetheless. It set him a little bit at ease. He was sort of glad it was a familiar face who was his opponent. Then again he sort of wished it wasn't. What he had in skills in the physical aspect she had in the quirk aspect. Even so, he had become pretty well adapted with it so far. Out his brothers, he seemed to grasp his quirk and able to use it well. He just needed to remain calm, clear, and focused. There was a reason why Aoyaza called it and classified it as Zen. I can't have anything break my focus, Leo tells himself. I've got to remain singular. I've got to fluid and like the wind free. Nothing can trip me up. No doubts, no distractions, but keep an anchor. April smirked a bit more. She didn't have to read Leo's mind to know what he was thinking behind those calm blue eyes. Still, she knew not to take him lightly. A thought she kept reminding herself, though not as much as the worry that remained sunken still. May was still gone. With her mind parted off, focused on her sister, made focusing a bit of a challenge, though Izuku and Mashirao offered to look for her, still didn't settle her rising nerves. That twitched on her fingers. They'll find her, she breathed calmly. I know they will. Damn it, May, why did you go up and run off? A question she knew the answer to, and one that shouldn't have crossed her mind, because she missed midnight's signal to start. Leo rushed her, taking advantage of her distraction. Kirby held his breath. Yurikara gasped. Eden nearly jumped out his seat. Leo was so fast like an arrow. He thrusted his palm at April. She just barely managed to jump back and dodge. She only had a minute to rest. The moment her foot touched the floor, Leo was on her like a heat missile, outlined by a phantomous silverish hue surrounding him, with 3 light gray dots in a single row on his forehead. His eyes remained the same-ish, they just seemed sharper and more intense than April thought. Dodging again, she managed to avoid his strike, followed by a single kick. Flipping back, Leo saw this and reacted instantly. Appeared a second before the spot she was going to land, spun around like a top and delivered a back kick that sent April back a few feet. "Whoa," Present Mike commentated. "Did you see that, ladies and gentlemen? That was flawless." The eldest Hamato brother instinctive assault swift and hit its mark. Like a ninja. The eldest O'Neill didn't have time to react or think. It can be anyone's match still. But who will be the top elder sibling? He turned to Iwaza. Any comments? The man said nothing. His focus remained on the match. Just like all the others, Kirby clenched a hand over his heart. "April," he whispered. Splinter sat calmly. It amazed Toshinori. The man could sit there so calm and unfazed. Not even his eyes reflected or flickered once after what just happened. Then again, he was a Hamato. Still, Toshinori turned back to down below. The dust hadn't settled yet. That came up after April was knocked to the other side. So it was hard to tell what was happening, or if she was even in the arena anymore. "I'm quite surprised," he expressed to himself. "I didn't think she'd get knocked out first. Thought the match would have continued a bit more, considering her quirk." Then again, his eyes moved to Leo, who remained fixated on the dust. "His quirk is impressive too. He seems to have gotten much better with it, I see. No doubt with some extra help." He referred to Splinter. "Quite scary." Toshinori recalled seeing Leo's quirk when he met the family. Each of the brothers demonstrated their quirks to him. He thought Raph's was interesting, it was, but right now Leo's was taking that spot. Yurikara's breath held itself in. Her eyes searched for any sign of April. Next to her, Ida did the same. A few of their classmates did the same. Donnie and Mikey's eyes were wide like plates. Raph's mouth nearly fell open, but he kept it closed. What just happened?" Kirishima blinked a few times. "It's like I blinked and The words froze on his tongue. Gyro sat up in her seat. This wasn't the same Leo she remembered back in the Astre. Sure, the sort of glow was the same, but what she just saw was different. She wasn't the only one who noticed. Momo too. The only one who wasn't sharing in the others' reactions. Kaminari, who was no recovered and made his way over. "Oh yeah," he exclaimed, thrusting a hand fist up. "Awesome." Gyro turned to him. "Awesome? What's so awesome?" He remained smirking proudly, walked over and sat down. Leo, his quirk. Dude's reaction, his auto-reaction. When he gets like that, he reacts before others. Like automatic or something. Like back at Asjet, but this time it's twice a cool. Whoa, he noticed something on Leo. Pointed. "Those dots are new though. Don't remember them back at Asjet. Cool, he's improved." "Yeah," Mikey exclaimed, overhearing. Turned to Kaminari with a hyped smile. "Our bro went through some intense training, we all did. But Leo was extra. He reacts instantly, and—" "I know that," Kaminari informed. Mikey chuckled, a thin smile on lips. Pointed to his own forehead, chuckled, and continued. "Those dots on his forehead, the 9 virtues of Hey Donnie," he turned to his brother. "What were they called again? I forgot." Slapping hand over his face mentally, Donnie sighed. "The 9 virtues of Diana." "9 virtues of Diana?" Kaminari repeated, curious. "That's what those things are?" Mikey and Don nod. "What do they do?" Grabbing Donnie's arm roughly, Mikey shakes Donnie wildly. Let me tell him. Unable to respond, from the violent shaking, someone else does, arriving to the seats. "They are the attributes assessed with Leonardo's quirk," you explain. "The pinnacle of his focal has increased. He has reached a new level of," you give a quick thought, "enlightenment. He is on a plane completely different than what is around him. His mind is free of bounds, so he can process, move, and react faster than before. Though those 3 dots are just the first level. It seems he is able to keep them longer. He opened them, and they are steady." The sound of your voice turned Yurikara and Ida, both glad to see you. Izuku walked to your side with Mashirao behind you. "May," Uraraka stood up with a smile. You look past her to the arena, focused on the still settling dust, eyebrows drawn together. Where was April? There was no sign of her. Noticing the worry carried in your expression, Ida did his best to alleviate it. "This is simply a tournament. There is no need to be concerned," he said. "The teachers won't allow any harm or terrible harm to happen. They'll step in, I'm quite sure, to prevent such an action. Despite the severity of the attack that just happened. Which seems as though you're freeing." His words weren't helping. Izuku was trying to gesture him to stop along with Yurikara and few others. He didn't. You though just walked down the steps, stopping at the bottom, and just stood there. Pom-poms to your side, hanging. Not sure what was going through your mind. Izuku only could read the transfixed expression swept on you. Yet, he felt something else he couldn't quite put his finger, except he seemed to see a bit past the face you had. Still, that didn't stop him from saying something. "May," he said softly. "Are." Your eyes light up and a smile spread across your face. "She's okay." He wasn't following, turning to him with your smile on. What assuring and proud smile. "Repeat what you said." "She's okay." Leonardo might have surprised her, but you turned back to the arena. He followed and saw your words. The dust finally settled, the smile you had beamed on Yurikara's and a few others. The brunette jumped out of her seat with a rooting fist thrusted up, cheering, louder than you. "All right, yeah, April." April still remained inside the arena, the back of her ankle just a half an inch to the broader. Her hands up, flashing of blue hue flickered in her eyes from the telekinetic shield she managed to put up. A confident smirk on her lips. It was clear by the hard breathing she doing that it was a challenge. But she managed to pull it off. Her eyes on Leo, unwavering. Leo's eyes sharply doing the same. He stood just a few feet across from her. Splinter paid careful attention to his eldest son. Reading the calmness cast over his eyes, his mind swiftly shifting multiple ways to counter and attack. Searching for a weakness of some sort. Every fiber of his body silently shook ready to spring and act once he did. With his mind assisting, Splinter knew April couldn't use the other part of her quirk to try and disrupt. From their training it proved ineffective. So her only choice was to utilize the more physical aspect of her quirk. Right now that meant putting up a defense to keep Leo at bay. She needed to get out of this position, this spot. Her own mind thinking of a way. She had to be careful with keeping her eyes directly with Leo's. If she even as such moved them an inch, he'd know what she might do. Even she raised a simple pinky, there was a possibility he might know. He was watching every ounce of her, smirking to herself, laughed a bit inside. This so wasn't like training the last few weeks. When they spared against each other, there was something different she couldn't quite pin on Leo. Yes, she expected him to react and know at least her movements by her body language. Attacking before she even had a chance to do anything with her quirk. But he wasn't expecting that she managed to put up a defense at the last second. That strike he delivered was precise, sharp. It was almost as if he had his katanas. No wonder his training required a great deal of mediation and focus. He had to block out everything around him, find himself while she tried her best to ignore the overhead commentary from present Mike and cheers from the seats. Yurikara and May, whom she was glad to hear. Wishing she could just slide her eyes back to her sister to make sure it was, knew that wouldn't be the best move. Leo would strike should her guard down for a second. His reflexes will react the moment I move, she mused. Staying here isn't going to help. Trying to trip him up won't work really. He'll realize it in a minute, and that still wouldn't be enough to counter. I could try to put the defense down for a moment and let him come. Convert my telekinesis to my feet. Then push it to coat around me, increasing my speed and movements. I might just be able to keep away for a moment. Damn those dots, she grunted. They're lingering longer than before. Leo really focused himself, like a dart. Wait, that's it! A smile curled in her mind, that gleamed slightly in her eyes. Leo twitched for a moment. With a plan set in her mind, April dropped one hand, then the other, dropping her defense, a shock and confusion to others. What is she doing? Ida said, adjusting his glasses. Looked to Yurikaka, who held the same question in her eyes, but with a gleam of confidence. I don't know, she said, but something tells me April has this. She knows what she's doing. Like Ida, Izuku was unsure. It wrinkled in his brow. She's at disadvantage, he mumbled his own observation. If she can't read his mind when he's like this, she won't be able to dodge or push a thought on him. Not to mention his physical skills are higher than her own. He can strike in a blink of an eye. Any way she moves her or gestures, he's already most likely figured out a way to counter it. Those dots haven't disappeared yet. He's still locked and focused. If she tries to flee, he'll just knock her out. She's close enough to the edge as it. That was his whole plan, getting her that close. Almost like chess, he's got her king cornered. It's like he's the queen with multiple moves. Any direction she chooses will end in a checkmate. Izuku-chan, your voice cuts his observation. She'll find a way out. She has a plan already formed. I can see it in her eyes. There is no doubt she won't get out. The assurance held in your words showed. It danced in your eyes that couldn't stop smiling and cheering. It gushed on your cheeks that you buried a bit in your pom-poms. It was cute and sweet. He couldn't help but smile a bit himself. Feeling eyes on you, turned to him. It took a moment to realize he was staring and jumped aside. Waving his hand before him, with a deep flush. I didn't mean to. He stammered over his words, tugging on his collar. Unsure why he acted like that, couldn't help but laugh. His reaction, his flustered reaction was no seem familiar. Not sure what came over you, reacted placing a hand on his shoulder to calm him. The moment he felt your touch, something warm and radiant could be felt. It was calming and relaxed his spiked nerves. Strange was all he could think of, but that was all that crossed his mind, because the action taking place down in the arena drew his attention and yours. Leo rushed April with a thrusted strike. It happened so fast Izuku was sure he missed the whole motion. Kaminari shot up from his seat cheering for Leo, expecting victory, to pause and see that it wasn't. Again narrowly managing to dodge April, made her away from certain elimination. Coated in a thin flickering outline of her own telekinetic energy, taking a moment to catch her breath, moved again. Dodging Leo's strike, pushing off and providing good distance. Staying on her toes as she did at the beginning of the match, Leo kept striking each empty spot. He paused for a moment then charged her again. She'd push herself away avoiding it. If a strike managed to get too close, she with a swipe of the hand send a small push his way. He was pushed back a few times, but soon saw through it, and was careful with how close he'd get. Creating distance and staying on the run was the smart thing to do, but April needed to switch it up. The next part of her plan, still smirking to herself inside. She didn't need to read his mind, it was clearly seen. Jumping back again, this time flipping ended up on her hands. Held herself there for a moment, took a deep breath, this had to be timed right. She had to concrete to do this, utilize this. If only present Mike would stop his yapping then she might. No, she calmed down. Now was not the time to get distracted. Feeling Leo coming from the small vibrations, the tips of her fingers felt his swift steps produced. The closer he became the more she could feel, and with an arm drawn back and strike ready Leo drove it forward. Kirby shot from his seat and heart dropped. Splinter sat calm, while others held their breaths. Some covered their faces but peeked through the slits of their hands to see, everyone on edge, dropped their jaws at what happened. Leo's strike plunged like a spear. April, holding her breath, pushed off and over Leo, landing behind, whipped around, and thrusted motion of the hand pushed Leo across and away. The force was strong enough to cause a small updraft, but strong nevertheless. Some thought she might have pushed him too hard, and he might be lodged in the wall of ground. Wait a few seconds for the particles of dust to settle. See, the eldest Hamato was fine. Out of the arena, but fine, a few scratches, nothing serious. Dazed a bit, but soon came to his senses. What? Leo shook his head a bit, blinking a few times, turn around finding April across the way pointing at his feet with a smirk. Looking down he sees to his surprise and dismay, himself out of the arena. Dang it, he hissed under his breath, looked to April. Smirking, she smiled and they both bowed to one another. Respectfully. The crowd roared in cheers, Kirby sighed relieved. Splinter smiled proud, even gave a small little applause. Midnight stepped forward, announcing the winner. Leonardo is out of the arena, the winner, April. The crowd cheers rose higher, your own cheers joined theirs. Throwing up your arms and pom-poms wave them congratulating April. Hearing you, April finally turned around to you. Giving you a wave, you smile grew. Noticing Izuku next to you, April gave him a nod. He returned it. Hearing Yurikara's cheers, April looked to her. Their eyes meet and smiles grew. Threw up a thumbs-up gesture. Taking in a few more seconds of glory, she exited the arena with Leo. Both of them throw an arm around the other's shoulder and head back to their seats. That last match left the crowd cheering for more. They exploded, pumped. Both contenders did well, and to see a Hamato compete after so many years was amazing. Some heroes outside of those covering security took interest in the two Americans. Two in particular who would fit perfectly with the right tutelage. They weren't the only ones. You were thrilled seeing April winning. Of course, it was heartbreaking that Leo lost, but both of them did a wonderful job. Both of them were equal in their own way. Leo did well with the usage of his quirk. Compared to his brothers, he's come rather far with it. It fit him well. You remained cheering even after they walked off and the next match was underway. April did a great job, Izuku praised. You not agreeing? That was smart of her coating herself with her quirk to boost her physical attributes. I was thinking of something completely different. Like what? You were curious. He gave it a quick thought. That she might just use her telekinesis to blast him back, or use it to lift him off the floor and keep him suspended. Something like that. There were many ways she could have utilized it, but she chose a tactic that was unseen. Even without reading his mind, it's like she did already. Well, we did all train together, you said? That was true. It showed considering how both Leo and April fought against one another. They knew each other's quirks, weakness, and strengths. Leo knew April couldn't read his mind in his Zen state. April knew her physical skills weren't up to par with Leo's, and trying to counter him frontal was not a thought. He mused to himself as you spoke about training. He kept his smile on while his mind took in everything. Leo had April on the edge. That attack he did, rushing her before she could even react, was smart. He knew how strong her telekinesis is and what she could with. More than moving chairs, that's for sure, and as Izuku recalled during the cavalry battle, that part of April provided a strong defense fending off others. It was a blunt force that packed a punch. With a mighty thrust of the hand, she sent a few teams back, or course it would cause a small strain, but she kept it up. And through our training. Your voice broke through for a moment. He gave a slight nod, showing he was paying attention. April's really something. Her quirk is really versatile. He mused further. Did she know if she used that move it would work? She had to keep a straight face the whole time and keep her movements at near minimal. Leo was reading her movements. His quirk is amazing too, boosting his attributes and focus. It's scary. He became a weapon himself, like a missile locked on its target. Staying on one's toes works for a moment. Any misstep Leo can easily end a person. That strike was like a blade, and those kicks like concrete. He would have thrown April out. But what was it that caused him to not figure out her movement? And what did April know about him without reading his mind? Your voice broke through again. And since we trained well together, we can necessarily read each other's. That's it, Izuku gasped from what you said. That's how she did it. A wide smile spread on his lips. She switched it up. Instead of relying on her quirk, she was able to read him. Because of that, he switched too and relied on his quirk to win. They both assumed the other one was going to, but they didn't. April figured it out first. That's amazing, he exclaimed. You look at him weird. Of course it is. That is what I have been telling you. Izuku-chan, are you all right? He turned to you. Yeah, sorry, I was just thinking. That's all. About what? My one-chan's match. It is over. She has won. Wait a minute. You leaned in close. He backed up with a nervous chuckle. How deeply were you thinking? Were you trying to analyze something? Scratching the back of his head fast, he nodded. Why, yeah, it was just a really amazing fight. That's all? I mean the way April switched it around. It was really unexpected. Not April winning, of course. I mean, how they both switched it up, you know? No, you didn't. I am not sure what it is that you saw, but from what my optical orbs saw was victory. Both put their all in this match. I know Master Splinter is very pleased to see how well they both did. You look in the direction he was and raise a hand. Right, Master? From where he sat, Splinter heard you through the crowd and smiled, rose a hand back and gave a slight wave. To your wild one, that you turned to Kirby, shouting for him. He gave a fatherly wave, with a blown kiss. One that made a certain person's stomach tighten and their blood boil. But they kept their cool, stroking the child next to them like a good puppy. Stopped feeling certain familiar turquoise eyes on them. knowing they needed to respond, raise from their seat and turn to the flame hero. His titan glare was enough to read. Understanding, they make their way to him. From the corner of his eye, Jun, still sitting with Shinso, earbuds in, well, one at least, slide his eyes to a certain spot in the crowd. He spotted the lone child, which only meant one thing: they were in a meeting. Moving his eyes up, managed to spot the flame hero and them. He watched the way they presented themselves, so clean in their white suit. That honeyed tongue of theirs should be considered a quirk, even if there was poison in it. The way they stood next to Flame Hero, in a pleasing yet respectable way. Flattery was their skill, yet it was also a cruel whip. Jun could still remember the stings from it. Despite their age, different hair color and slight hair texture, the facial structure, eye color and skin tone was nearly mirrored. Just compared to the other one, it was only years that separated them. One was young, the other older. It amazed him how it dawned on the other one the similarities, physical similarities, the two of them shared. Jun remembered when he was younger how people would state that. Over and over again. He got tired of it. Sure, they looked nearly the same, personality-wise, that different of course now it was. Back then, when he and them had to play games, mainly tag-related ones, he saw another side that mirrored them. In the eyes, yeah, he remembered those golden yellow eyes turning hard and cold and dark. Sharply driven, he was sure they'd cut something. But that was only back then. Outside of that, they still carried that look slightly in their eyes, but around him it seemed to melt. They became warm, a warmth that left him. Forgot about him. It turned its back to him, despite his cries for them not to. They let go. He bared, clenching his fist. His knuckles began turning white and a dark. "Hey," Shinso's voice breaks through. "You okay? What's got you so ticked?" Realizing what he was doing, Jun took a breath and relaxed. "And nothing. Just, this whole damn festival is taking too long," he snarked. "They should just let the good ones fight each other already. The lames ones can just go away. This is a waste of my time." "Humble as ever," Shinso commented. "Since you're so impatient, your match should be starting soon. Against that Hamato. I'm kind of looking forward to it. After the last one, this one should be interesting." Jun scuffed. "Still a waste of my time. I'm better off watching paint dry. I bet." A smirk curled on his lips. "My match will be over like that," he snapped, snickering. "What makes you say that?" Shinso retorted. Jun turned a high chin. "Because I just know. That lean, weak Hamato can't stand up to my quirk." A dark hue flashed in his eyes. "In fact, I could wipe out all four of them without breaking a sweat." "You know," Shinso leaned back, "if you're so good, then why were you put in general instead of the hero's course?" "Shut up," Jun snapped, earning a smirk from Shinso. Growling at his classmate, Jun turned and huffed to the side. "Not like I had much of a choice," he muttered to the side. "I should be in that course. None of them deserve to be in it. I'll prove it too." "Hey," Shinso tapped them. "You better hurry. Your match is about to start soon." Turning back around, the current match was ending. Though it seemed more like a show or advertisement, it was shameful. Standing, Jun takes out his earbuds and hands them to Shinso. "Don't let anything happen to it, okay?" he demanded, walking off. "See you in a minute." "Arrogant bastard," Shinso smirked lightly, putting one of the buds in his ear and pressed play. "At least he has a good place list." Back where Class 1 sat, Donnie was shaking in his seat, even with Mikey's attempt to relax him. He was sweating bullets. He didn't expect his time to come so soon. He wasn't ready. How in the world could his quirk compete with others? If he made it to the next round, it wasn't he was better off in a lab. Sure, he had his training and stuff that might help him, but really that was all. And this Jun guy, who was he? Correction, Jun T. Who was he? Donnie knew nothing about this guy. Man, he wished to have gotten someone from his class, or at least one his brother or April or May. Someone. With present Mike calling for the next contestants, Donnie had no choice. Swallowing every ounce of nerves, he rose from his seat and, despite the rooting from Mikey and encouragement from others, dragged his feet to the arena. Donnie's match was about to start, something you would have enjoyed to see if not for another important matter. Getting April, she hadn't yet returned back to the seating area when Leo came. He informed you that he just came from Recovery Girl and she was still there, though she would be on her way, or more so should. Which didn't happen. After waiting about maybe 10 minutes, there was still no sign or presence of her. So you decided to leave to see if she was alright. Of course, before you went, Izuku and Ida as well Mishiro voiced their concerns about you becoming lost and suggested you stay. But you persisted. Clearly your mind wasn't going to sway, so the only thing to do was have someone go with you. So who came? Urakara. She wanted to go. Something you well didn't mind. Not that you had much of a choice, she just pretty much included herself, so you let her. Before leaving, Ida sort of gave a time limit to you to return, which was settled by just calling. Izuku managed to settle him in not going overboard, though he did included the time limit. The minute you and Urakara left, Donnie and Jun stepped out and entered the arena. Jun caught a glimpse and clenched his fist. It didn't go unnoticed even when he quickly cast it aside and refocused himself back to the matter at hand. His silver eyes quickly sized up the lanky Hamato, who was doing his best not to show the rising nerves, but it was there. Even the small beads of sweat forming on his brow. Jun groaned. This was a waste time. It was hard not to turn and walk out. But he felt their sharp eyes on the back of his neck, warning him. His hand almost clenched again. Luckily he didn't. Knowing well if they saw that gesture, knowing it was directed at them, there would be payment afterwards. So he took a few breaths quietly and produced a smirk, a friendly one at Donnie. One Shinso saw and scoffed at. Donnie wasn't sure why Jun was smirking at him. Whatever reason, it was rather eerie. Enough to send a chill down his spine. There was something about Jun's lax appearance that just didn't seem right, even when he spoke, which sounded like he sort of accent. Let's have a good match, okay? Jun said. Donnie wasn't sure whether or not to respond. He just simply nodded. It'd be rude not to. Jun's smirk spread further and looked up. You know, I've got a goal. Do you? He dropped his eyes back to Donnie. Still no response, though there was the signal by midnight to begin, along with the cheers from the crowd. Nothing, huh? Well, that's a shame. I would have liked to hear it, champ. My goal is, well, to set things straight. You see, he held up a finger and chuckled a bit. Oh, sorry. I shouldn't be telling you all this. You're not the person I should. It will be interesting going up against a Hamato. Donnie noticed something that made him raise a brow. Jun's finger, a thick solid ebony like fog, began surrounding it. That wasn't what held Donnie's attention. It was thin dark marking like vines that began to make themselves visible in a manner very similar to someone else he knew. He wasn't the only one who noticed too. From his seat, Izuku blinked a few times. That looks like, he mused quietly to himself. Ida next to him adjusted his glasses for a moment. That guy's quirk, it looks like. Wonder why he's just holding up one finger, someone said. Izuku hadn't noticed that. Observing closer, he saw it. Jun had it pointed towards Donnie. His eyes were glowing. Not that it shouldn't be a surprise, but it was the way they illuminated. His pupils completely disappeared, replaced with glowing dark silver. Leo leaned forward a bit in his seat. Mikey too. Raph, though slouched, opened an eye at a moment that snapped both his eyes open and dropped the mouths of others. The last thing Donnie remembered Jun say before the everything went dark. Ninjas aren't afraid of the dark, right? Right was what you were trying to process. Walking down the hall towards Recovery Girl's room where April was, accompanied by Urakara, which was where the right came in. As in, was it really right for her to come? Even if it was part of the agreement for you to leave the sight of Izuku and the others? Yes. Though you still felt it was not needed. That could be the reason you weren't full engaged. Urakara, on the other hand, hadn't stopped talking, throwing punches in the air with a smirk nearly matching April's. And she was like this, then like that. You weren't lying. You guys really have some moves. She brought her arms back, smiling. April was really great. You've got an awesome sister. Her last-minute plan was pulled great. I had no doubts. She kept herself calm and cool. Yes, thank you. I am glad. Your voice rather monotone. You admire my sister? She is strong and smart. She is rather instinctive in situations like that. It shows. I might just ask her for some lessons. Urakara joked, nudging you a bit. You give a soft chuckle to the side, though turn and sigh to the side. She wasn't done. I think April's going to make it high in the festival. No doubt she caught the attention of some pretty awesome heroes. She's been really well in all the events. Of course, the two of you together do really good. She quickly added, you give a smile, though wish she would stop. But she didn't. The way she talked about April as if the two of them had been friends. Best friends forever. You know, back at the Astia, April was so cool, her eyes sparkle, when she tried to take on that villain. She was so cutting edge. She came in handy when she linked everyone's minds together. I mean, without it, well, Ida wouldn't have gotten out. The way she stays so calm and focused is just, it was hard for her not gush. You saw it and frowned a bit. Sorry, she apologized with a flushed face. I'm just really amazed. April is going too far with her quirk and skills. They are rather adaptable, wouldn't you say? A small groan slipped from you before answering. Yes, I am quite aware my sister is rather adaptable. We do train and live together. Yurikara's smile fell a bit. Oh, her eyes looked to the side. Yeah, that's right. Silence took over between you and her, minus the cheers of the crowd that echoed through halls. So, Yurikara started up. May, right? She was trying to make small talk again. You nod. Tell me about yourself. April talks about you a lot. She makes you sound really interesting. You raise a brow to her. Interesting, you repeat? She nods. Yeah, the few times me and her talk or text, she always mentions you. You ears heat up. Oh, well, What is your quirk? I've been meaning to ask you actually, because what you did back at the USA lighting up like that kind of reminded me of something radiant. It also felt really warm. When you covered everyone in that golden-like dome, I never did get a chance to tell you thank you. So, she smiles. Thank you. You turn to the side, looking away, and mutter, Why, you are welcome. Yurikara couldn't help but chuckle a bit. So what's your quirk called? I mean, it must be something good, for it to allow you to so much with it. Flying? That's pretty cool too. I mean, I can make myself float, but that's not really the same as flying. You shake your head. She kept going. April told me you've had your quirk for some time. So how old were you when it happened, when your quirk happened? Giving that question a thought, you came up with nothing. Shrug. There is really no current age. Why is there an age? Well, yeah, April said hers happened when she was young, I think about 7 or so. That didn't seem correct. You must be mistaken. My sister has recently discovered her quirk, though of course it has been much longer than our friends. But we both discovered it equally at the same time. Yurikara gave a look that was uncertain and confused. What you just said didn't really match up to what April said then again. Thinking back, Yurikara recalled something April said to her and quickly shut her mouth tight. Nervously laughed it off. Oh, yeah, why you're right. Sorry, completely forgot. That was rather weird, but you paid it little mind. Arrive at the office. Lift a hand about to knock, when the door opens and April steps out, rubbing her temple a bit. Recovery girl next to her patting her lighting on the back. Now, remember, the woman instructed kindly. Give it some time. Those headaches should go away soon. If you're still a bit dizzy, then come back. But in all, you're free to go. April gave her a smile. Thank you. Guess I overdid it a bit. But, she looked at her hands. It was worth it. I just have to be careful next time. Oh, she noticed you and Yurikara. Hey guys, what brings you here? One-chan, you throw your arms around her. You are well. Being squeezed by you took April a bit of time to answer. Why, yeah, she gasped, trying to get out, which she did. Not so tight, okay? Realizing what you did, nod. Good. Yeah, I am. Just got the clean bill of health. I'm surprised to see you both here, okay? Maybe not, you may. She looked to you, turned to Yurikara. But you, did you have your match already? She shook her head. No, not yet. A few were just worried May might get lost coming down here, so I offered. Also, I just wanted to see if you were all right too. Glad you are. Thanks. April grinned. Appreciate that. You look from April to Yurikara, then back to your sister. Drop your eyes to the side for a moment. Recovery girl noticed the hanging look on you. It was so similar. For a moment, after looking at April then back to you, she saw them. Those sisters. Years ago, how could she forget? The eldest one was known for coming in here quite a lot, with her younger sister by her bedside, carrying the same face May had on right now. The only difference was one was of worry and concern compared to lonesome and hurt. Of course hurt didn't come later for those two sister. Years later, and now. Oh, One-chan, you speak up, getting April's attention back. We should hurry up and return, Donatello's fight has just begun. We should want to cheer him on. Really? April said surprised. Donnie's fighting. Yeah, let's head back, I want to see how well he did. Your smile beamed. Thank you, April turned to Recovery Girl and politely bowed her head. I'll make sure to be a bit more careful. The woman gave a nod and smile. I'm sure you will, just remember what I said. Understanding, April walked off with her sister and Yurikara. Donnie knew from the start he wasn't going to fare well like the others with his quirk, as he stood across from Aizawa, who waited for him to start. Like the others, he had to demonstrate his quirk and have it assess. After Raph's demonstration, it was Donnie's turn. His knees quivered a bit. Just 2 days ago he found out about this, which his mind was still trying to process. Yet he had it, and now, how was he supposed to access it again? Trigger it to start? Raph's came rather easy, made sense too, almost like it was written for him. Leo's wasn't much a surprise, well a bit. They both showed pretty interesting ones. Donnie on the other hand sunk a bit at the thought. His wasn't blazing or mesmerizing, it seemed quite the opposite. Aizawa just waited, counting the seconds passing for Donnie to do something. It was quite clear the turtle was either delaying or felt hesitant for some reason. Compared to his other brothers, confidence wasn't his friend right now. Nevertheless, he needed to something. For a son of a Hamato and what he saw from observing or in his words stalking the group from afar during the nights, there was brimming calm confidence on the tall mutant. Scaling and running across the roofs of buildings, it wasn't lagging. There was a strong confidence shared among them all, though individually they had their own levels. Focused, brash, calculating, wild, observant, plucky. It was an odd combination, Aizawa admitted, but it worked somehow. He'd watch them for hours, studying each one of them as they displayed their hidden presence and skills against their enemies. And the same was said for their quirks. Donnie still remained standing before the man, swallowing each rising lump stuck in his throat. The rest of the group waited for him too. But the lanky turtle remained frozen. It wasn't until Aizawa stepped in and attacked did Donnie show his quirk. Even without his own quirk activated Aizawa, the man saw the turtles and knew right away where it fell under. One thing was sure, it wasn't one that would really hold up in the hero course at UA. If not for Donnie's physical training that gave sort of an edge, then Aizawa would have ended him. Then again he was going bit light. After evaluating each one and compiling the information into separate files, Aizawa went back to them, starting with the Hamatos. The moment he entered their home, caught a glimpse of the tallest son in his lab. He was excelling well in there, all the projects Aizawa managed to see. The way Donnie's hands picked up something and for a moment knew, began to assemble something. The small light purple circuit-like veins appeared on each object he touched, each piece of technological equipment. The turtle put them together, creating something. Once done, he went over to something else and set a hand to the object's side. The same circuit veins appeared and Donnie went to work on whatever it was he needed to fix. Sometimes the touch would cause the object to change a bit. It was either based off his own thoughts or something else. Either way, his quirk excelled. Feeling eyes on him, Donnie stopped what he was doing and looked up. Aizawa was standing in his lab looking right at him. It was hard Donnie couldn't read the man's eyes or any thoughts he had. The only thing he could was the finger the man held up and pointed a finger at the object. Then held up Donnie's folder. Can we talk? Donnie was momentarily lost for words. Yeah, he shrugged. Taking that as invitation, Aizawa walked over, set the file down, opened it, and turned for Donnie to read. I know you know what this means, right? Disheartened, Donnie nodded slowly. I sort of figured, he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. I mean, it makes sense. Out of my brothers and friends, well, he took a long, reflecting pause. Tried to make light of it. Chuckled. I am the smart one after all. At least my physical status are good, right? He forced light smirk at Aizawa, but it fell as quickly as it came, and the hurt tinged in his eyes. So, are there any other courses? At this school? There are other areas, business, general education, Aizawa began listing. Stopped and changed topic a little. I'll be running this by your father. If you have any interjection, feel free to do so. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Hero course isn't for everyone who doesn't want to do it. Though, his eyes look around the lab. Other courses and interests seem befitting for you. There's no doubt you wouldn't excel at them. There's a specific pro hero who's also a teacher at UA, Majima Higari, power loader. I'm sure he wouldn't mind an extra student in your field. Donnie's eyes fall to the side, thinking about it. That is, of course, Aizawa continued, collecting the file. If you want, I'm not saying the hero course is impossible for you. Like you said, your physical stats are good. You could find a way to make your quirk work for you in that course. If you want, you'll have to push and go beyond, and you know what our mantra is. You can easily do it in any other courses. Just because others are going down one way doesn't mean you have to. Their strengths lie in certain areas, the same with yours, but you have to see it. Donnie opened his mouth, closed it quickly, shut his eyes, looking away. With nothing more to say, Aizawa leaves. Hearing his footsteps walk away, Donnie opened his eyes. That moment, that memory still echoed inside as he laid in Recovery Girl's office, stared up at the ceiling tiles. That match was over in a blink of an eye, and his hand clenched into a fist. His quirk wasn't of any use. He couldn't even do a single thing, compared to back home where he was able to at least keep up with his brothers in physical skills. But now this was a complete different ball game. With the sisters, with May and April, that was different. It was flipped. What they lacked in physical skills was higher in their aptitude with their quirks. It was an even playing field, well balanced. All of them balanced each other out. Leo with his leadership and responsibility. Raph with his drive and strength. Mikey with his speed and dexterity as well light-hearted ways. April with her grounded approach and stability. May with her enlightened and refreshing sense. Then there was himself, brain smarts that again back home was something. But now, he lamented, it was different. If any one of his brothers or the sisters would probably have a higher chance on going toe-to-toe with Jun, or at least give him a run. But Donnie, he didn't. Iwasa's words resurfaced, repeated themselves over and over in his mind. It hurt. Donnie wasn't sure if it was embarrassment or something else or a mixture altogether. But it was something to allow a few tears to fall. Try as he might to hold it in, his quiet cry reached Recovery Girl's ears. The woman turned a bit to the Hamato. Her eyes and heart both felt for him. Turning back around, shook her head slowly, muttered to herself. The door opened and Splinter came rushing in to Donnie's side. Dropped down, placing a gentle paw on his son's forehead, smiling proudly while his eyes tinged. Donnie, with whatever strength he had, looked to his father and produced a smile. A small one, but it was there. He stayed like that for a few seconds before his eyes started to slowly close on their own, so he could heal. Recovery Girl's quirk was taking effect. With his eyes shut, the room was quieter than usual. You should be ashamed of yourself, Recovery spoke. Her words calm, but Splinter could hear and feel her anger. His ears dropped, softly stroking Donnie's forehead. I know. His voice cracked a little. I know very well. He wasn't the only either. Recovery Girl had another. She needed to say these words too. But that would have to wait. Feeling a sneeze coming, Kirby released it. Strange, he wasn't one for superstition, but a sneeze like that only meant someone was thinking about him. Unsure who and not really thinking much of it. Right now his attention required to be at the arena. The next matchup. May and Mikey. Well, the fight wasn't what anyone expected in the last match between the two best American friends. It was over before it began, and their way of how they did it left even present Mike a bit stunned. Well, that was, he tried gathering the right words, looking to Iwasa for something. The man said nothing. In seats with Leo, Raph, and April, they weren't that surprised on how it went despite their face betraying them. Oh my goodness, Leo muttered in the palm of his hand. Seriously? Raph smacked his forehead. Idiots. April just stared dumbfounded, with a throbbing vein that didn't go unnoticed. Ida, sitting next to her, pointed it out to shut up right away from her sharp look. Uraraka tried to keep the peace. Izuku was confused, opened his mouth to ask. April's low growl made him swallow his question. Uraraka was doing her best to calm April down. Kirby blinked a few times and shook his head, laughing a bit. It was like his youngest to do something like this. The same with Mikey. What they did was pretty much how they settled nearly everything. Though, thinking about it, scratching his cheek a bit, maybe it wasn't the best considering the situation. They could have done a little bit of something. But it was clear their relationship was more important. An adamant quality, but not needed right now. Iwasa groaned a bit in his bandages. He wanted to shake his head, but didn't. Looking from one to the other down below in arena, as they walked off, Midnight announced the victor a bit stunned. If those two would have gone all out, he thought, his money was on youngest turtle. With dexterity and quirk there was no doubt. What a shame, they were going to get it later, after this whole thing. Endeavor wasn't pleased, shot his eyes at them with a heated look. They felt it and did their best to remain calm, but their blood boiled such a idiotic display. They could spit acid. The child next to them titled their head a little to the side. Was that some sort of game the two just played with their hands? They weren't sure, but it looked interesting. Their hand quietly mimicked the gestures, stopped instantly when their eyes fell on them. Jun wanted to scream at what he saw, but held it in. How dare, just what the heck was that? This was some kind of joke. Despite the fact they won the match, he saw nothing. Nothing that told him just how strong they'd become after so long. What more they could do if he was better? Nothing. They just played a silly carefree game with that blasted smile. Damn that smile. Still the same after all this time. He remembered, that smile came every time followed by a soft touch that stopped all that hurt. It beamed warmly. He wasn't cold anymore, it wasn't dark anymore. Despite everything. Sometimes it was goofy, which wasn't allowed, so it was done in secret, and it was only for them. Laughter was silent, but it there, so was that hand held out to him, every time he fell. They could have gone and finished the games on their own, but they'd came back if and only if they could for him. But it was all his jaw clenched, it was all nothing but a simple ruse. A ploy and lie. They left and didn't look back this. When they left, they took someone else's hand instead of his own. His hand could still feel the emptiness, his eyes could still remember their back to him walking away. His ears could still hear the cries he screamed for their return, never to be returned or given a second thought. They just left, and now. That wasn't what I expected, Shinso's voice cuts through. Jun blinked a few times, looked to the boy, then to the arena, turned his nose up. Pathetic if you ask me. From both sides, a disgrace to both their names and families. What important family is the other one from? Shinso rose a brow. The girl is from America, her family is normal, besides being friends with the Hamado. Jun frowned. He doesn't know a single thing, he sneered. His lips parted a moment, the words were on his tongue, he could easily say them. Scream if he wanted to, but he knew better, sealed his lips shut and swallowed them. Smirked. Nothing is important about her family. They just both made a fool of themselves. Makes it easier for me, I can further embarrass them in the next round. Shinso nodded a bit. It'll make for an interesting match, your quirk against theirs. They're almost similar really, you'd think they were related or something. Have you seen their quirk? I caught a bit of it during the first two events. Well, you should know about it, you did partner with that girl. It's all right, Jun shrugged, leaning back. Eyes locked on the pink-hair female who made it back to her seat. With the youngest Hamado, both of them were instantly scolded by the others. Leo did more of the scolding, while Raph and April both karate chopped them on the head. I can tell you, it's nothing really special. But, for the sake of entertainment, I'll play a little first. You know what they say, it's all fun and games till someone gets hurt. Not sure what he meant, Shinso just saw the cocky smile on the boy's face, not the intentions behind it. April, Leo, and Raph were very much disappointed with you and Mikey for such a performance in the last match. The minute you and him arrived back to everyone, all eyes turned and looked. Some confused, others surprised, a few had a mixture of both. You and Mikey proceeded like nothing happened. It quickly faded when April and Raph stomped over, karate chopped the top of heads, snatched you and Mikey by the arm away from everyone. Leo followed, arms folded and peeved wrinkle on his brow. Eyes followed the Americans, wondering what was to follow. Seriously, Raph snapped, karate chopping Mikey in the head again. What the hell is wrong with you two? April flicked you in forehead. One san, you whine, rubbing it. She didn't care and flicked you again. Stop whining, you know that didn't hurt, she said, void of any emotions, even from your puppy eyes. The frown she had averted your eyes down and sent a chill down your spine, so she tugged your ear. What was that? Honestly? Raph continuing karate chopping Mikey a few more times. No matter what his younger brother tried to do it prevent the hothead from attack. All right, Leo appeared stopping the punishment. Enough. Raph and April stop, though Raph struck Mikey once more with a heated chop. Dude, Mikey snapped. Shut up from the side glare his brother gave him. Please, please, Leo inhaled long and steadily, pinching his brow, taking a moment to collect his words and calm himself. It still showed in the sharpness of his eyes upon the youngest. Explain to me why you two would do something like that, out of all places? You and Mikey on knees before the others, eyes on the floor, they stood over with heated glares and twitching eyebrows. It was hard not to feel heat of their anger, or was it frustration? Whichever it was, the hard lump that formed in your throats and most likely Mikey's grew in size. In your mind, it didn't seem wrong to do it. You and Mikey did pretty much all the time, plus you loved games. They were fun. Games were fun, that's what you learned. Opening your mouth, April grunted, warning you to choose your words carefully. So you did, and simply say, it was just a game. Lift your eyes to them. We always play it when he decide upon things, just like back home. Rock, paper, and scissors. Raph smacked his face. April messaged her temples, muttered some words to herself, before responding back. Yes, she stressed. You both did back home, but this is completely different. You rose a brow, tilting your head. How so? It is just like normal sparring, like the dojo. She continued. It's not May. Hearing her slight frustration rising, Leo took over. Okay, true, but this is different. What April means, what we all mean, this is up against others. People we don't know about, their abilities, their talents, what they're capable of, and though we all might know each other's. Gesturing to himself, April and Raph. We don't know the others. Plus, he didn't want to say this, but this was a different playing field. We've got scouters. Others are looking at us to see what we have. Other heroes who, if interested, might well. Raph threw up his hands. Seriously, Leo? Raph, it's true. We're not really. Leo biting his lip. He didn't want to admit it, but he had to. Really ninjas anymore. Mikey opened his mouth and laughed. Duh, we know. Training to be heroes. We just wanted to have some fun. He looked to you, winking. You push a small smile that quickly fell for a moment. That's what makes this so cool. You don't have to be so serious as a hero. Trust me. He stood dodging a strike from Raph. I've read enough comics to know. This isn't a comic book, Mikey. Leo groaned, shaking his head. Mikey, you have to be a bit more serious about this. Okay? Think about father? Remember? For a moment Mikey stops, laughing at the thought. Leo was right. Their father didn't want them to do this, and... Also, Leo added, with a bit of redness rising on his cheeks, beads of sweat appearing on his forehead. Without Momo putting her honor on the line on our behalf, we wouldn't be here. His hand clenched and eyes softened. Came all that way to persuade father. Without her words, we'd be back home and you'd be in your room sulking right now. So for you to take this as a joke is dishonorable. You stood up and came to Mikey's defense. He did not mean to, Leonardo. We just wanted to have fun, as I stated before. Right now isn't the time, May. April spoke. You look your sister, her arms crossed. There is a time and a place. This event, not many make it to this part. From what I've been told, those who wanted and worked hard to get here did. But those who equally did the same work weren't able to. You and Mikey were lucky enough to get here in a spot others would kill for. We've got heroes looking to see just how good we are. Unlike the guys, you and I come from a family that isn't well known, though we did get in through recommendation thanks to Master Splinter. We also have to uphold his image and status. We are his students, and we need to show everyone that we are. Your eyes stare at your feet. She wasn't done. Each word she spoke, your shoulders hunched. We're in different waters. We've got to adapt. You're rather good at doing that, so you need to do it now. We're friends, yes, but in the arena we're rivals. The fun and games can wait after all this. All right, you nod quietly. Good. You're going to be in the next match, so you've got to bring your A game. Cause, she smirked, setting a hand on your head. If we're up against each other, I expect a good match. Lifting your eyes to hers, give a small smile. Yes, one san. Look to Mikey, exchange a smile, turn back to the others. We apologize. Mikey gave sort of a nod. Leo took what he could get. April, Ida called coming down the stairs into the hall, spotting the group. Yororaka and Izuku next to him. Ah, there you are. We came to get you and your friends. Pointed to Raph. Your match is next. Wonderful, Raph grunted. Walked off. Waste of my time, damn it. We better get back to our seats, Leo said. Thanked Ida walked back with you and April. Instantly you latch onto Izuku's arm, squeezing it. He didn't mind and let you, walking back to the seats with you yapping and talking away. Though someone sitting in the next class saw it and turned away with running tears, his classmate rolled their eyes at their emotional friend, offered to get up and call you over, to quickly be snatched down. Reaching your seat, let Izuku go and sit, right next to him, with April on your other side. Leo went back to his seat, about to sit when Momo invited him over to sit next to her. He went. April couldn't help but laugh quietly. The crowd roared the moment Raph and his opponent entered. Hisui, the girl with light green cracked skin, sharp orange eyes, and black mohawk. It was clear what class she was from. 1B, considering how loud they cheered. She turned to them throwing up a peace sign and small smile. That turned to blowing kisses to the crowd. Raph rolled his eyes, not the least bit impressed. Noticing his hardening look, Hisui addressed him. Let's have a good game, mate. Eye roll again from the mutant. She didn't mind, smiled a bit more. Serious one, are we? Well, so am I. Heard, you're a Hamato. Neat. It's an honor to be fighting and brawling with ya. I managed to see what your quirk is, and I gotta say, it's hot. A joke? Wonderful, Raph groaned. He just wanted to get this over with. Sit down and wait for this whole thing to finish. The silent type, eh? She peeked, cracking her knuckles. I like your kind. The silent type, the mystery behind what you truly are. I love mysteries, they're like puzzles. I'm not really good at them, but I do my best. Ready, Midnight announced. Hisui grinned sharply at Raph. He noticed this gleam in her eyes set in. What? He leaned forward a bit. Begin. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 5. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Raven 716 on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.